In a distant land, in a castle, a summoning from another world was made. Steam hissed throughout the large room. A crowd of people appeared in the middle of this room. They did not understand what kind of place it was and how they ended up there. The girl, who was in a school uniform, said in fear that just a minute ago she was going to school, and now she found herself in an unfamiliar place. The kingdom has been fighting against demons for the past few years, causing them great losses. The kingdom is on the brink of a national disaster. That is why they decided to summon people from another world who were endowed with power, so that the summoned ones would help fight the enemies. They did an excellent job, answering the call of the king, the 18th generation of the summoned ones, who were called great heroes. A crowd of strangers don't understand what's going on. Why they're called heroes and why they're called heroes is all they care about right now. The people of the kingdom want to test their skills. Among the crowd, there is a girl who has a very rare skill, Divine Scythe. Looking at the characteristics of the schoolgirl, everyone around was very surprised and considered this skill a real success. The girl was surprised when the magician pointed at her, attracting the attention of the others. Examining the other people, they find another rare skill. These skills they call the power received during the transition to another world, granted to them by the gods. The king shouts that skills are not something that can be bestowed upon the representatives of their world. They are only a blessing from the gods. These people are those who have been summoned from another world with gifts from the gods to serve them. They are called heroes. The crowd is confused and at the same time joyful. Heroes possessing certain powers but are called to a completely different world. Lady Momoko wanted to say that all this is not so, but she is interrupted by a resident of the kingdom, saying that she is gifted with the skill, Divine Scythe, that has the ability to erase higher demons with a simple swing. The king is pleased that there are also many good skills among the rest of the people in the group. This time, the summoned ones definitely impress him. One of the subordinates called out to Excellency. Addressing him as "My lord," the man in the robe introduces the summoned Norio Itonami. The man says that this hero has no abilities. In the character window, the boy really did not have any abilities. Having noticed Itonami, the king only remained silent, and the young man, in an absurd position, awaited the reaction of his lord. Typical city bustle. A crowd of people wandering about their business, going down into the underground passage where the metro is located. The city is stuffed with multi-story buildings and offices. They, like huge walls, stand in a row one after another. Itonami Norio sighs heavily, thinking about another day spent as a corporate slave. He is weighed down by the fact that the subway train is completely full. Itonami steps onto the train and thinks that this is not the place he wants to be right now. Because the carriage is completely full, he angrily tries to squeeze inside so as not to wait for the next train to arrive. After this attempt, he bumps his nose into something soft. The soft thing turns out to be some plump man. He looks around, trying to figure out where he is. The man introduces himself as God. All Itonami could think about was his own death. God says that the boy was called to another world. He was chosen by his father, Zeus, who is the king of the gods. Their administrator is Athena, but the other gods complained about her discrimination against men, so the clueless Itons are taken care of by this plump man. Norio asks again about the summoning administrator. The boy does not realize what is happening. The god introduces himself as Hephaestus, good at such things. He gives the boy an unusual skill. This was Hephaestus's first time gifting someone a skill, so he was as prepared as possible. Itonami, nervous about receiving the skill, said that if it was something great, he wasn't sure he could accept it. Hephaestus holds out the skill he created, Master of Excellence. He extended his hand with a glittering sphere. Norio is clearly not thrilled with the divine gift. The man says that the skill is very difficult to use, but assures that the boy will definitely cope with it. These words brought Itons into an even greater panic. Hephaestus extends his hand with the sphere to the young man's chest, saying that he put his heart into creating the skill Master of Excellence. The man asks to use it to the maximum in a new world for him. The boy remembered this dialogue with God, which took place on the eve of his arrival in another world. The people were in a panic, because the summoned one did not have a single skill. This was the first such incident. Itonami turns around, looking at the king, thinking that for humans, the lack of skill is a problem and he won't be able to fight demons. Norio wanted to ask the king something, but he shouted for everyone to shut up. Answering the question in advance, the milord shouts that no one will be able to return back. The boy didn't want to ask that, But Momoko, in a panic, repeats his words about how he won't be able to send them back. Milorg replies that they have a way to summon heroes to their world, but how to send them back is unknown. Only the Demon King knows the way to return back. That's why the heroes must go to the front and defeat his army. Itonami says that without his abilities, he can't participate in the war. What good is he then? Then Noiri suggested the following. He asked if he could get a piece of land. The boy wants to change his life for the better since he is useless in the kingdom. With such a request, the boy stunned the king. It doesn't matter to him how far from the kingdom. Once he gets the land, he can live alone away from them. Since he can't go back, the boy decides to leave the life of a corporate slave behind. With full self-confidence, he wants to start his second life in this world. The king's subordinates are dumbfounded by the impudence of the summoned hero, who has no abilities. Itonami stands before the deserted expanse with the guide. The desert, stretching in all directions, wherever you look, from this moment, comes under the control of the boy. The man says that this was bought by His Highness for Noiri, and also the salary he received. The young man will be able to live here as he pleases. Being knighted and given an uncharted land meant that it was not part of the kingdom. Itonami doesn't quite understand that it is normal for a king to buy land for a hero. The guide points out that this is wonderful. After all, everything that is outside the kingdom is not its territory. The place has not been explored by the kingdom, which means the boy will not have to pay anything to the king. Itonami is undoubtedly happy about this, because he can freely engage in farming. After these words, the man extends his hand in a begging position and demands payment for the excursion he gave the young man. After receiving the payment, the guide leaves, saying that from now on the kingdom does not ask him for anything. He tells him to go and do whatever he wants, regardless of whether the boy lives or dies. Noiri, saying goodbye to the man, feels bad about the fact that they are paying for him, because the young man does not have the skills that they need so much in the war with the demons. Standing before a valley of deserted fields, Itonami thinks about a new life that begins here and now. Usually, someone goes on a great adventure, bands together to overcome adversity, and eventually defeats the strongest enemy and gains fame, but the boy can do without it. Setting out on his journey, Itonami considers the king and his subjects to be rather desperate people. Walking along the deserted boulders, he thinks that he can live peacefully like this. He suggests to himself to enjoy life in peace in this new world. The boy would prefer not to encounter them again, so he wants to find a place as far away from the kingdom as possible. Standing in front of the sea, he enjoys the sea breeze, believing that there is no better place to be found. He joyfully waved his hands, feeling a breath of freedom, and shouted that he would stay here and make this place his personal kingdom. First of all, Noiri wants to provide himself with water so that this need does not arise in the future as a problem. He sat down on the stones in front of the water to test the water itself for taste because he thinks that it is seawater. Scooping up a small amount of water with his palm, the young man decided to try it right away. It turned out to be drinking water from a fresh lake. He was delighted when he saw the tentacles of a sea creature sticking out from under the stones in the water. Then he thought about the fact that octopuses do not live in shallow water and do not live in fresh water. He is not interested in this, because now the main task is not to solve the mystery of the octopus's location in the supposed lake. Now there is an urgent need for food for the near future. He grabbed the tentacles, hoping to pull the inhabitant out, but standing on a surface that had no grip on his shoes, he began to slide towards the water. Having fallen under the water, Itonami emerges with his eyes wide open and the same octopus on his head. Standing up to his full height, he felt that the water was damn salty, which really surprised him. After which he thought about it because when he tasted it, it was completely ordinary and fresh. Itonami decided to double-check his suspicions and scooped up water with his palms again. With an octopus on his head, the guy drank some water and again realized that the water was still drinkable. With joy on his face, he calls the new world amazing. Coming out of the water, he realized that there would be no problems with this. Taking the octopus off his head, the boy now thinks only about food. Having thrown the sea creature into the container, Itonami realizes that at the moment he does not have any seasonings, so he decides to cook the octopus in salt water. Noiri wants to make his first fire. Taking a hunting knife, he cuts a hole in a dry wooden stick and then makes a notch. He will insert the stick into the depression and begin to form coals, which are created by friction. Then he will move the coals to the brushwood that has been prepared in advance. Itonami exhaled, gathering all his strength to put his soul into his very first fire in his life. Having got down to business, the boy began to twirl the stick with his palms at a furious speed, putting in a lot of effort. The flame flared up after the first attempt to make a fire, which really scared the Itonami. He did not expect such a turn of events. An underwater inhabitant is boiling in a pot on a lit fire. Noiri made a plate and chopsticks. While eating an octopus tentacle, Itonami only thought about how quickly the fire ignited. With a grin on his face, the boy is proud of his excellent survival skills. And then he remembered what the god of the hearth, Hephaestus, said. The ability of the young man is the skill of superiority. After thinking about the man's words, Noiri decided to confirm something by standing in front of a field with a lot of plants. By swinging his sickle arm, he shouts to activate his Master of Supremacy ability. A huge strip went along the trajectory of his hand swing, destroying everything in its path. Itonami does not find words for this. It seemed to him that he was not capable of such a thing. Hephaestus did not give a full description of the ability that he granted. And after that, it seems, he understood what a good life is. Taking a hoe, he decided to do the same thing as with the sickle. Having stuck the tool into the ground, the same thing happened. Noiri is shocked and at the same time delighted by what he is capable of. He bent down to check the condition of the land after using the skill. The land was so thoroughly plowed that the boy did not need to do anything extra. The bed turned out so big because he imagined how it should be. Itonami concludes that the master of excellence that he received from Hephaestus takes the effectiveness of everything the boy holds in his hands and multiplies it. The young man realized that with this ability, his agriculture would go uphill because it was easy for him. He did not sit idly by, but continued to work. In his garden, he planted strange seeds taken from the city. Noiri stands next to his beds, breathing a sigh of relief. He is proud of the work he has done, although he himself does not know what he has planted. But if they grow and the boy can collect them, he will not worry about food. There are even worms in the soil. Since it takes some time for plants to grow, the young man decided to go fishing so that he would have something to eat for dinner. Sitting on the shore, Itonami enjoys his time fishing. He thinks that life would last longer if he worked for the company, but thanks to Hephaestus, the boy can control the waves. The boy thanks Hephaestus for this wonderful skill. Someday Noiri will have seaweed and rice. But at the moment of dreams, the guy's fishing rod bit. He began to pull the line towards himself with all his might. Judging by the tension, the guy realized that something incredibly large had been caught on the hook. A long-haired girl appeared from the water and took the bait. Itonami clearly did not expect such a turn of events. He, also dumbfounded by what is happening, pulls the fishing rod further, not controlling the process. After all, he caught a girl and not the fish he wanted for dinner. Seeing her, all wrapped in fishing line, the guy noticed her tail and realized that in front of him was a real mermaid. But he returned to reality. He was distracted from his thoughts by the mermaid, who called him a peasant in a hypocritical tone. She is outraged that he dared to fish out her in this way. The young man does not dare to argue with her, thinking that she is hostile. The girl screams that since he caught her, he must marry her. Such are the rules of the new world. Idens got fed up with this statement because the distance between them suddenly decreased to 0. He just got a wife in another world. The mermaid is upset that she was captured by a hillbilly. There is no worse humiliation for a merfolk resident like her. Now she is an exiled mermaid. The loser gives his body and heart to the winner. Sitting still with the hook in her mouth, she cries because Itonami was able to catch her. This is very different from what the boy imagined. Having gotten rid of the problem in her mouth, the mermaid began to cry because she was now disgraced and could not go back to how it was. Noiri wanted to object that the girl herself got caught on a fishing hook, but she doesn't even want to hear it. Mermaids are proud and really hate living beings and people. The guy has no choice but to do anything about it. The girl screams at him, because how can it be that such a mermaid, like a fish, can be pulled to the shore by someone like him? This hurt her pride. Now she cannot return to the sea. The mermaid continues to scream that it is karma and she has no choice but to be his wife. From now on, Itonami must be responsible for her. For the young man, this is not something he is used to. The boy has heard that in the world he is in, marriage between different species is a little harder. Looking at the girl's tail, it is unlikely that he will get married. The guy thought that her thoughts will not turn into reality. She took out a bottle filled with an unusual liquid and began to take sip after sip. The boy was blinded by a sudden bright light that appeared from the girl's side after drinking the elixir. The mermaid's tail gradually turns into human legs. The guy looks at the girl in shock. He turns away from her in embarrassment because the girl, having acquired legs instead of a tail, stands without clothes on the lower part of her body. The mermaid proudly says that she will not be happy living on Earth, but now there is an opportunity to make a child. After this, the boy will not complain about her. Itonami shouts that he understood everything and asks to cover himself with something. The young man thought about the fact that he panicked too much and accepted everything spontaneously. All he has now is an empty field. The girl does not like the clothes that Norio gave her. To her indignation, he shouted that he would not marry her if she did not want to wear pants. Standing near the flower beds, Itonami tells her that he can only make the clothes that the girl likes, but the problem is that he does not have a home right now. The young man came here to plow the field. They noticed the sprouts that appeared in a short time. Sprouts appeared in all the beds, which greatly surprised the boy and his future wife, who was standing nearby. He wondered if this was one of the abilities Hephaestus had given him back then. If the boy was not mistaken, he had once said that he had given him supreme power in using various types of tools. The girl became interested in what her newly minted husband was growing. He had no idea what he had planted, fruits or vegetables. That is why he decided to check it out here. The young man says that he wants a simple life. The girl calls the owner of this land very troublesome. Itonami says that he knows nothing about the fish life. Then she said that she understands that all her husband wants is to live in peace. Norio mockingly clarifies her confidence in her words. Proudly and solemnly, the girl says to rely on her. Healing is the mermaid's original ability, and the girl is also an expert in healing magic. But the young man did not quite understand what was being discussed. The girl was irritated by such incomprehensibility. With enthusiasm and pride, she tells him not to be shy to ask her if he doesn't know something. Then she began to take off her pants, which greatly embarrassed Itonami. She ran towards the water, saying that she would take some things from the house and jumped into the water, turning into a mermaid again. Had no choice but to watch, wondering what had happened. He went into the forest, thinking that this mermaid seriously wanted to be his wife. All the young man really wanted was to escape the hustle and bustle of life. Taking a small hatchet, he thought that there was no guarantee that she would return at all. Without wasting time, Itonami began to chop down a tree with a small hatchet. He would try to make a simple house. After a while, the boy looks with pride at his built creation and enjoys its simplicity, being in pleasant solitude. He is delighted. He never thought that he could build a house in just an hour. Norio calls himself a real man. Sprawled out on the bed, he rests. Despite the abilities that Hephaestus gave him, it is still tiring. While resting after a hard day, Itonami thought that the possible reason for his weakness was that the mermaid had joined him. Remembering her, he concluded that she would not return after all. While Norio was sleeping soundly on his new bed, the girl returned. Her appearance woke him up. The mermaid joyfully ran into his arms, again without any clothes below the waist, because she had drunk the same elixir again. Itonami, in confusion, ordered her to put on trousers again, which the girl was unhappy about. She doesn't like them. He asked her where she had been all day. The young man was worried about her. She looked at him and silently turned away. Crossing her arms over her chest, the mermaid says that, in the end, this is not a human matter. Such commoners do not care about anything, in the girl's opinion. As she was leaving the house, she told him that she had some difficulty cooking. The word cooking caught the Eaton's attention. They were standing in front of a large shaitan, a machine called an aggregate used to create a magical medicine. Beaming with happiness, the girl says that by mixing a little magic power, as well as different types of potions, she can make a magical medicine. They have different effects. She demonstrates the drug for those who do not have magic. Itonami asked her about the cold medicine. The girl proudly said that she would do it later, when all the preparations were made. The mermaid quickly ran for something necessary. The young man asks her to be careful. He wanted to threaten her with something for lying. He did not have time to say anything, as the girl had already returned and was demonstrating a huge fish in her hands. The tuna's name is Ba-Ng. The fish's meat contains a lot of mana. Norio doesn't understand anything about it. He is surprised not by the fact that it has any magical power, but by the size of the fish itself. With just one hand, the girl cuts the fish into pieces. Itonami mentally calls her hands swords. The mermaid began cooking. She brought the water to a boil, adjusted and maintained the pressure, grinds some ingredient into powder. The next moment, the girl shows off the fertilizer from the Ba-Ng fish. Noiri is wary that it is fish fertilizer. If the boy scattered this fertilizer on his farm, they would be able to harvest faster. The mermaid happily began to get down to business. Itonami wondered about her intentions, because she really wanted to help him cultivate the fields. The next day, all the plants bear fruit. They are both shocked by the effect of the fish fertilizer. The young man had placed wooden pegs for the plants in advance. He picked one tomato from the bush and decided to try it. Itons really liked the taste of vegetables. He calls the girl a very unusual mermaid, San. She still looks warily at the behavior of the young man. The girl decided to try the tomato too and picked it from the bush. After taking one bite, she silently drooped. Noiri began to calm her down because such food might not be to the taste of mermaids. Was wrong because his future wife found it very tasty. She was surprised that people from the earth eat such products every day. The mermaid took the carrot out of the ground, intending to try it too, to enjoy the taste again, but a different one. Itonami stopped her, saying that there are different kinds of vegetables. There are some that they have to cook before they can eat. The girl whines that it's all so much trouble. She's being capricious because she wants to eat more vegetables. Then Noiri began to cook the food in the seawater. The mermaid sits on a rock near the soup vat. He handed her the plate with the dish so that she could try the different taste of the same vegetables together. Itonami is worried that she might not like the food he cooked. The mermaid, having just tasted the prepared soup, looked happy because it was very tasty. The young man, serving himself some soup, is undoubtedly happy about this. He thinks it would be nice if this were the case every day. The girl, still enjoying the food, asks her future husband, "Do people always eat such delicious food?" Then Itonami says that it's not quite like that. It would be better if they added meat to the soup. If possible, he wants them to make some kind of signature spice that will make the dish more delicious. The mermaid is stunned by the fact that the food, which is already delicious, can be even more delicious. Noiri says that this is possible if there are seasonings. But first of all, the spices need to be made. He wants miso and soy sauce for cooking because he already has meat. With a happy look, the boy says that he also needs equipment. Itonami likes the taste of these vegetables so much that he plunges into his mysterious world of pleasures. Suddenly, he realized that he still didn't know the girl's name. The mermaid who turned into a human was called Plotty. Ito wanted to say his name, but he thought that since he was in another world, he might have to change his name. With a smile on his face, Itonami introduced himself as Kadan, saying that he was glad to meet her. Slurping aggressively, Plotty enjoys the chopped-up food and stares at her husband, and so begins everyday life with a mermaid. This is Itonami Noiri, now called Kadan, who came from another world. A new life has begun with a mermaid wife. Sitting on the floor, the boy rubs his back because of the pain that appeared after sleeping on the floor. He noticed that Plotty was no longer in bed and thought that she had woken up before him. Even if she looks like a human, she still remains a mermaid. The guy thought about the question, is it possible for a girl to sleep on a board? He is puzzled because, looking at this, it seems as if a fish is sleeping on a cutting board. Kaidan really hopes that the mermaid is not angry with him for catching her on the hook. In order to throw this thought away, he decided to simply ask her about it. Before he could leave the house, the boy heard Plotty's shrill scream, which scared away all the birds in the area. Kaidan asks her what happened. She shouts that there is someone in the fields and points to a straw scarecrow in a hat with wooden hands. Breathed a sigh of relief and said that it was just a scarecrow. He had made it himself, the first scarecrow in his life. Kaidan explains that it is artificial and its upper limbs can move, and its fingertips are also equipped with wooden swords. Continuing to tell the story, the guy said that this serves to scare away birds that spoil the crop fields. She thinks it's a scarecrow that can move and scare the birds, but the guy laughs at her words, saying that it doesn't work that way and the scarecrow can't move. Standing in front of the girl, he tells her that by placing him in the middle of the field, the birds will think that he is a man and will not eat the crops. The young man did not see that. Behind his back, the same scarecrow was waving his wooden swords. The girl told him about it. Turning around, he looks at the dance of the creation he had created, dumbfounded. He did not know about it because he created it with the idea of an ordinary scarecrow to scare away birds. With his mouth open in surprise, Kaidan is amazed that they are actually moving. The girl was surprised because she thought that the scarecrows should move. This should not be happening, and, looking at his hand, he wondered if it could be because of his strength. Plotty became curious about why he was staring at his palm. Then her newly made husband confessed that he had actually been summoned by a god from another world and was a stranger here. Kaidan thought about the Scarecrow's behavior and was absolutely sure that the reason was hidden in his power from God. The girl understood something. She asked that he, it turns out, is a summoned hero. The boy is surprised that she knows about it. Plotty proudly crosses her arms over her chest and says that of course she knew about it. She explains that there was a summoning magic performed in every era to summon a hero from another world. But she wondered about the boy, because heroes must fight demons for the sake of humanity. The boy with a blush on his cheeks agrees with her words. Rolling her eyes, she asks what a hero is doing in a place like this, where they are now. Sitting down next to the crops, a happy Kaidan explains that he does not want to be a hero and is hiding here. This also seems strange to the mermaid. The boy somehow doesn't care about this. Happy, holding a ripe vegetable in his hand, he listens to the girl's speech. Plotty asks that he seemed to belong to the tribe that was used to living together. People from another world are generally weak, so if a person is alone, he will be immediately killed by a monster. The boy does not deny his wife's words. She considered him special, but he refuted this, sitting next to the grown bushes. Holding a tomato in his hand, with a smile on his face, he reminded the mermaid that he does not live alone, but together with her. Plotty wondered, is he really strong or weak? She doesn't understand it. Behind her, the guy is enjoying his breakfast, a fresh, ripe tomato. Still squatting, he said that he noticed her going somewhere in the morning. He thought that something had happened to her. This question stunned Plotty. The boy had really embarrassed her. It was clear from her that she was a little embarrassed to answer this question. In response, she shouts to him that she is going to the toilet, of course. She is surprised that earthly people are really so curious. Kaidan only shrugged his shoulders in embarrassment. Then he decided to ask where she goes when she wants to go to the toilet. He didn't need an answer, because he thought of it himself, to the sea. After a short silence, realizing the whole situation, he sat down on the ground and realized that he had to dig a hole for a temporary toilet. However, he forgot one important thing while trying to survive. People alone are really weak creatures. Even a simple insect can threaten them, not to mention wild mammals. Heaving a sigh of relief, he luckily lives with Plotty now. Deep inside, the boy feels incredible relief. But suddenly, the boy thought about the girl's opinion on this matter, what she thought about the time they were together. Plotty, who had been leaving somewhere before, held out a plate, showing off the starfish. Kaidan inquired about the contents of the plate. The girl calls them one of the types of sea monsters. This monster, as she says, absorbs all organic matter floating in the sea. Another name is a sea cleaner. Also, Plotty says that these creatures can be used to purify water. The boy does not quite understand the essence of these sea monsters. She decided to show the work of the sea cleaners and took out her own penknife, the blade of which was brought to her forearm. Having made a cut, she pours her blood into a container with starfish. Kaidan was shocked by what was happening. Plotty, with a proud expression on his face, tells him to watch the work of this sea monster, the sea cleaner. Kaidan grabbed the girl's arm, squeezing the arteries on her forearm. He yells at her for what he did. Looking at him with an innocent face, Plotty says nothing. The guy tries to stop the bleeding. With an upset look, the boy tells her that she should not do this anymore. He is very worried about her. Having calmed down, the guy admits that he is very shy and insensitive. He apologizes for his behavior. The reason Kaidan is so nervous is also because of the power that God gave him. He is always worried. When facing him, Plotty says that she likes the guy very much and denies the words he said. As his wife, she now promises to always support him. Kaidan is surprised and embarrassed by the girl's words. The mermaid thought he was against it, but no. She proudly crossed her arms again and said that the role of a wife is to support her husband. With a smile on his face, he turns to her and thanks her. She, without answering, with her nose upturned, turned away in embarrassment. The toilet was built, another life problem was solved. It was time for breakfast, as Plotty reminded her. Somewhere far away beyond the vastness of the sea of this world, terrible sounds are heard from a rocky cave. The demon, who is in the space of darkness of this cave, feels an ominous flow. Something begins to approach. Plotty called Kaidan to show her new outfit. Instead of trousers, she made herself a skirt from fabric. Yesterday she was in trousers, and today a new outfit. Spinning in front of him, she says that she tried to remake the furoshiki that was in her luggage. Hesitating, stammering, wanted to say that it was not worth it, but the girl said not to worry about it. The mermaid easily says that it is the wife's duty to be beautiful for her husband. There is nothing strange about this. The girl, holding a work briefcase in her hands, said that it was a long time ago when she left. The guy did not understand what she meant and where she went. Perking up her ears, she, with a perky expression on her face, tells Kaidan that she found a dungeon. Then the boy began to think about what a dungeon is. For him, it is a place where you can find treasure, or a store underground, or fight a terrible evil, and the top floor is the boss's resting place. Still, he asked Plotty what the dungeon she was talking about was like. The girl said that it was better to look than to explain, and hurried him to go faster. They came to that very rocky cave, which was located in a completely different direction from their place of residence. Kaidan was very tired because they walked for 2 hours to this cave. Plotty found this dungeon while he was doing work in the field. This is a cave-type dungeon. They are created in places where mana flows. Although this looks like a normal cave, the unsuspecting young man was enveloped by a gust of wind, which seemed to suck him into the dungeon. Kaidan felt as if he was being licked all over the face by a giant beast that he couldn't see. Plotty was puzzled by his expression. It was both strange and surprising. Energy that flows and circulates throughout the world. In some places, the flow stops and accumulates. This place becomes a dungeon. As a result, mana with high concentration transforms into a monster. As a result, a monster is born in this dungeon. It will shimmer and roam on the ground and under the water. Shivering with fear, Kadana felt a flush of heat. A trip to such a dungeon could result in not entirely positive events. Nothing could stop Plotty because they had already arrived. Throwing off a liter of sweat, the guy was glad that his wife was capable of this. Of course, clearing the dungeon itself is a complex technique. She just needs to defeat them. But it was because of this that the young man tensed up again. Burdened by this event, Kaidan thinks that he must protect her. After all, they are now husband and wife. He asked her to wait for her. She turned around in surprise, because a minute ago he had not even hinted that he would go with her. Proudly and selflessly, Kaidan rushed to her, saying that this work was for her husband and they were going together. Entering the dungeon, they were surrounded by brick walls, not the usual stones that were outside. Torches were burning everywhere, lighting their way. Looking around, the boy notices that this dungeon looks like a castle from the inside. The girl was also quite puzzled by this. She stopped, seeing a suspicious puff of black smoke approaching ahead. The mermaid remains on guard. She shouts at Kaidan to leave immediately. The puff of black smoke turned out to be magical beasts and insects, aggressively rushing towards them. They seem to have broken loose. The stunned guy stands behind his wife, who is ready for the upcoming battle with demons. While the boy is numb from the horror he has seen, Plotty shouts at her husband to leave while looking for something in her bag. There were 3 test tubes with unclear contents. The girl threw these potions towards the beast with a running start. The creatures, like a whirlwind, began to dissolve in the air into tiny particles. All that remains of them is a shadow. Kaidan is amazed by what he sees. The monster rushing towards them has dissolved into dust. But Plotty says that's not all. There were only 3 test tubes. One freezes their bodies. One of the demonic beasts was electrocuted. And the last test tube with contents was acid, which caused the dissolution of cells of every centimeter of the body, except for the skeletal system. Plotty crosses her arms proudly and says that mermaids can make combat magic potions just as well. It seems that her husband has post-traumatic stress disorder after what he saw. As the girl moves forward and destroys the remaining monsters, Kaidan calls her the most dangerous creature, even though she just saved him. The boy thought about his wife's courage, because he couldn't leave this task to her. In any case, he didn't have the necessary tools with him, so he was useless in battle. In the corner, near the wall, he saw a sparkling object. It was Battle Sword. Grabbing the 2-handed sword, Kaidan was so happy about it because his Master of Excellence skill would increase the damage power. While the girl cheerfully throwing around his potions, he began to doubt that he would ever use his weapon. Calling out to his wife, he asked her to stop for a moment. Realizing that he was already at his limit, he said that he had already won and would soon go home. Plotty agreed and turned around to go on. Then he asked her about the number of monsters destroyed. The girl looks around anxiously in this dungeon. Everything seems strange to her and something is wrong there. The young man listens to her words. As the girl says, the dungeon is fine, but the commander-in-chief monster is somewhere ahead. He may be somewhere deep in the dungeon. Turning to face Kaidan, she rephrased the words from commander-in-chief monster to boss. This would make it easier to explain to her husband, who didn't understand anything. What she means is that there is a boss in the dungeon, and such caves with a boss are very rare. and also, it is an extremely dangerous dungeon. Taking it step by step, the girl tells Kaidan that there are only two types of bosses that can be the main dungeons. One type is a dragon. As before the entrance to the cave, they were again enveloped in a strong blizzard of magical energy, so much so that the guy is blown back a little. Plotty is so confident and does not take a step back. She understood from whom the flow of enormous energy comes. After all, he is in this dungeon. Something sinister is approaching them. The young people stand, waiting for the appearance of that very boss. Kaidan thinks it's a dragon and asks Plotty about it. His wife, pricking up her ears, says it's much worse than a dragon. This is the boss, the king of the undead. The king without life. The undead hangs over them like the moon in the sky. There is no hint in his eyes that people will be able to leave here unharmed. Sweating with horror, Kaidan asks the girl about the creature that appeared before them. The girl, preparing for battle, tells him that it is a great magician or high priest, an immortal king who rules at the pinnacle of the undead. He possesses high magic and intelligence from birth. Meeting a powerful undead king in a dungeon can only mean one thing, certain but painful death. The young man does not want his life, which has just begun, to end so quickly. Kaidan does not intend to retreat. The king of the undead, breathing in and emitting a stream of energy, says that he feels some strange flow. He will turn the boy into a living corpse and he will become his friend. The girl threw her test tubes of potion towards this demon, expecting to see some effect. Having hit the king's skull, the bone first melted and then restored itself together with the crown, which indicates that there is no vulnerability to her potions. Kaidan noticed that the monster was using healing. The girl was not surprised by this, as she expected. The demon was immortal. Facing a dangerous enemy, Plotty shouts that she has plenty of potions in stock. She tells him to run away and quickly from here. At the moment of the spoken words, the young man thought about the chance of survival if he runs away. He will be able to live on, as he planned. The boy screams that he cannot do this. He has one thing that he picked up on the way to the boss. Realizing that trying to damage him with potions was useless, he rushed towards the undead king, sword in hand. Kaidan shouted that he was her husband, so he would save the girl. He desperately jumped towards this magical entity, which could turn him into a corpse in an instant. The girl was touched by the young man's words, as if he touched her proud heart with gentle hands. He flies towards him like a hawk towards its prey. The guy is ready to deliver a critical blow, but the king asks him to stop. He lay down on the floor and said that he was giving up. Both Kaidan and Plotty stood there in complete bewilderment. The king does not want to feel pain. He did not expect that the young man would open the holy sword. It contains enormous power. The dumbfounded boy held out his holy sword in front of his face. Plotty simply remained silent and did not intervene in their dialogue. The monster asked the boy where he got the sword. Then the monster, resembling death in its appearance, remembered something. It was the holy sword from his dungeon. Kaidan apologized and was about to hand his sword back. The undead king said that the sword now belongs to him. The holy sword is a sword that has a will. It also has the desire to choose its own person. Now the sword has chosen the young man as its new owner. The undead king has lost his treasure. With relief in his soul, he says that finally his duty in this world is over. He asks Kaidan to kill him with this sword. His body was cursed with immortality. With this sword, the boy will be able to cleanse the king. The boy does not want to. The boy considers himself not the right person to be the master of this sword. He said that he came from another world. At that time, God gave him the power to use all kinds of tools to their full potential. Perhaps this is the reason why Kaidan can use the holy sword. The monster kneeled down and cried out loudly. He said that this was a gift from the gods that they had heard from legends. An exceptional ability is more than an ability that cannot be fit into the scope of skills. Every person who has received a blessing from God deserves the title of hero. These are holy people. The undead king bowed to the puzzled Kaidan. The creature turns to the people who bring blessings from the gods, asking to give him a little of their immunity. The guy is stunned by what is happening and asks not to give him a higher rank. Plotty expected her husband to be so cool. The undead king is puzzled by the question, why did the young man come here? To which Kaidan said that he had recently started living not far from here. The girl intervened in the conversation, saying that the destruction of monsters is the primary task of the residents. The fur and bones of monsters are baked into the materials of magical tools. Some of them are even tasty. The girl said this with bliss on her face. Her husband was fed up with her words because they were treated with hospitality, and she considered it a convenience if there was a dungeon nearby. In a state of delight, asks permission to come to this dungeon to go berserk. The king agreed. At first, he himself wanted to destroy the monsters in the dungeon. With this, the young people helped him a lot. Plotty is very happy and grateful to the Undead King for permission. He doesn't find anything wrong with it, and they smile together. Behind them stands a stunned boy. The girl, realizing that a friendship had developed between the king and them, introduced herself and also introduced Kaidan. She wanted to meet the evil spirits. He thought about it, realizing that he had forgotten his name. Plotty was puzzled. She did not expect the king to forget his name. If he is not mistaken, he was previously an archbishop in the church before he was born. The mermaid listens very carefully to her new friend. For some reason, he was abandoned and, pursued by the church people, came to this place. In this dungeon, the entity absorbed the accumulated mana using a great spell, which eventually killed him. He spent hundreds of years in this place. He is no longer possessed, but he has forgotten his own name. The king is so upset by this that he sheds a tear. The husband and wife sympathize with the lifeless king. They are very sorry that such a story happened to him. The entity said that he was just an old man who had lost the simplest desire to live, had lost its meaning. From that moment on, after the arrival of the children, his pain from boredom diminished a little, which the king was undoubtedly glad about. Kaidan began to smile, which Plotty noticed. He addressed his new friend, inviting him to visit sometimes. They would be happy to greet him with the vegetables he had made. The boy called the king Sensei, pricked up her ears and asked why her husband had named him that. Since he had been a great clergyman when he was alive, the boy decided to name him that. The words spoken touched the lifeless king, who had spent hundreds of years in the dungeon after dying from the spell. Still kneeling, he thanked them for their kindness to him. Thus, they had a good neighbor. Heading towards the exit, Kaidan shouts to the sensei in panic that the sword is not leaving him. The king laughed at this, and the girl was burdened by this, realizing that the sword really loves him. Thus, the guy received the holy sword. Kaidan cried out joyfully that it was finished. The young man was incredibly happy with the creation he had made. Plotty asked about her husband's new building. He introduced the structure and said that it was a forge furnace. Taking out his holy sword, he admires its incredible power, as the holy weapon can cut through a boulder like soft butter. The girl hinted at the true purpose of the holy sword. In that case, the mermaid became interested in why make a forge furnace. Then he reminded her that he had received a gift from the lifeless king, Sensei. Plotty realized that the guy was talking about the mana metal that the sensei had given the boy in gratitude. The girl admires him so much, calling him a magnanimous sensei. The magic in the dungeon is dense enough to materialize it into mana metal and simply give them this incredibly rare resource. Plotty is curious about the boy's further actions. Having received this valuable metal, he will be able to make from it what he has wanted for so long. The boy is looking forward to this. While Kaidan forges, the girl continues to admire. Since the metal is made entirely of mana, perhaps it will be a fine magic sword. Reliable magic weapons cost at least 10 gold. The guy shows what he created. It was a frying pan and a knife with the sharpest blade possible. Kaidan bought kitchen utensils and is happy about it like a child. The girl is in a stupor because she was thinking about a magic sword. She became interested in what it is. Then the boy began to tell. He showed each thing, saying their names. It is easier to show than to explain, and he began to cook. Kaidan cuts vegetables with this kitchen knife, then fries them in a freshly forged magical frying pan. Like a real chef from a Michelin star restaurant, he demonstratively salts and peppers the prepared dish. The girl excitedly awaits the food to taste it. The boy prepared fried vegetables, a new dish on his menu. Plotty sparkled and screamed with joy and the sweetness of the taste. While eating the delicacy, she noticed that their dishes had changed. Kaidan made not only a frying pan and a knife, but also ordinary dishes. The mermaid came to her senses and does not understand why the hell he is wasting this mana, metal. At this moment, the boy admires the miracle resource. Light, heats up well, does not burn, and is easy to clean. Not a dream, but a real fairy tale. With this, the boy's repertoire of cooking will increase a little. He looks happier than he ever was before moving to another world. Plotty, who felt as if she had been struck by an electric shock, asked about the recipes he wanted to add. Enjoying his new cooking tool, the guy said that of course there are, but it would require a few more ingredients. The girl furiously demands an answer about what else he needs for this. After these words, the young man thought, he really wants meat. Anticipating the taste of the dish, he says that by adding meat, the food will taste completely different. The girl can't wait to try it, and she invited him somewhere. They wander through the forest. Because Plotty is a mermaid, she has never seen the mountain monsters that she always wanted to eat. Twisting the sword in his hands, the young man thought that they would hunt in the traditional human way. The girl agrees that there are also monster birds, a boar or deer, but she is not interested. Mountain monsters are best suited for cooking. Plotty happily says that, according to others, mountain monsters are very tasty. Kaidan concluded that such creatures are used as bargaining chips in this world. Then she asks her husband's opinion on the subject of caves. How, in his opinion, for example, monsters are born in caves. It is a cave dungeon, but the lifeless king, Sensei, uses his powers to control the monsters, and thus he does not allow them to come out. And if there were some type of mountain monsters here, then the whole mountain would be a dungeon. The girl wants to come to a logical conclusion so that the young man understands everything and does not ask questions. They stopped. The boy can't believe that somewhere nearby there is such a dungeon. Mentally, he is upset that there are no normal animals here that they could eat. On the way into the thicket of the forest, they see darkness ahead, in which the light is reflected in a bunch of eyes. Probably, these are animals. In front of them was a whole pack of boars, monsters, who are definitely not in the mood for peace and friendship. Plotty was delighted with this find when Kaidan began to sweat from fear. It seemed that the young man would never get used to the new world. He is scared because the boars definitely look like they are ready to fight them. The girl even knows the type of these creatures, square boars. Plotty jumps with joy, calling this place incredible. There are 2 dungeons nearby. Kaidan is stunned and scared, not understanding why they should really be happy about something like this. The girl starts to fight, taking out her potions. She asks her frightened husband to hold them back as long as possible. She promises to put them down quickly. One by one, the boars began to attack the young man with the holy sword in his hands. In any case, the boy was not ready to fight. The boy had no choice. He would have to accept it and do what was necessary. Wielding such a powerful sword, he laid down the boar one by one without even letting them touch him. Behind him lies a whole pile of carcasses. Kaidan, holding his weapon in front of him, is panting from fatigue. Plotty jumps for joy, saying that he did everything magnificently. She didn't even have to waste potions. The boy was not in the mood for a fight and explained his victory by saying that they attacked one after the other, and he unexpectedly won. At least they will be able to eat something other than vegetables. The mermaid is impatient to start cooking. Since they had so much meat, she suggested cutting it into pieces suitable for cooking and then freezing them with a potion. Kaidan thought about building a wheelbarrow and a refrigerator to store the food. Having spent a small amount of time on this, the boy built what he had planned, a refrigerator and a wheelbarrow filled with provisions. The young man asked his wife about the freezing potions. She crossed her arms proudly over her chest and doubted his trust in her. The girl had a whole supply. Sincerely and with tears in his eyes, Kaidan thanks Plotty. Their daily life is getting better and better. For the girl, this is the most important thing. She pricks up her ears and points out that this will help the boy improve their dishes. She asks him to cook faster. The boy just laughs at his wife's reaction. Wild boar is still pork. If a young man wants to use such meat to make the most delicious dish, it will be tonkatsu. Wiping away the drool from his imagination, he thinks only of the crispy crust of tonkatsu. The girl is outraged that her husband imagined something and is enjoying it, but his dreams were replaced by thoughts, because they will again have few ingredients. The problem will arise when making bread. The obstacle is in the eggs. Plotty is angry about this. Then he asked the girl if there were eggs in this world similar to the same eggs, but from another world. She answered upset that she had heard that landlubbers in this country do something similar, but in the land of mermaids you won't see anything like that. Plotty points to a crow that has landed in their field. Kaidan suggests that this one won't be suitable for cooking. Then the girl suggests a radical solution, to go to the mountains again to look for the monster bird. The young man does not want this. While he is thinking about the fact that he will have to kill the monsters he has come across, some huge creature is flying in the sky behind him. With each passing second, it is getting closer and closer. The boy felt pressure from behind. It confused him. He turned around to understand what was the reason. The girl, staring at the creature, opened her mouth in surprise. Plotty thought it was a bird or a plane, but Kaidan thought it was a meteor flying towards them at breakneck speed. As soon as the creature came very close to them, creating a vortex of air around itself, they realized who it was. The girl was not as scared as Kaidan was. This winged creature turned out to be a real dragon. For their souls, because they have invaded the dungeon he rules. She points to the mountain they were on. Plotty recognizes it as the dragon's dungeon. Kaidan says nothing, just stands there frightened with his mouth open. Surrounded by the whirlwind from the powerful wings of this dragon, the girl made the correct conclusion that the dragon is the ruler of that very dungeon. Almost sobbing with fear, the boy shouts to the mermaid, recalling her words about the dungeon not having a ruler. As she understood, he was attracted by the strength of the young man. The dragon's name is Grinsel Dragon, Shroud. She repeats her question about who invaded her dungeon of the Royal Mountain without permission, who killed her minions. Dragon knows that it was the young man who did it. He, covering himself with his hands, tries to wriggle out of it, justifying himself by saying that they did not know about the existence of the owner of that mountain. The winged, powerful creature still looms over them. Kaidan asks for forgiveness and promises to never go there again, but the dragon doesn't even listen. Grinsel Dragon Shroud considers such an act unforgivable. Such lower life forms violated the boundaries of her abode and did what they wanted. The humans stained her honor. This is the reason why she will erase their very existence. Grinsel sets out to cleanse the result of their sins and, in a fit of true anger, uses his fiery breath, intending to turn them into ashes. Her fire, like a blast wave, spreads across the entire land. Plotty and Kaidan do not know what to do. The girl panics, thinking that their death is inevitable, but the boy comes to his senses and remembers his holy sword. Like a true hero, he swung his weapon. He covered Plotty from the fire with his body, and he himself tries to repel the dragon's blow. He cut through the flames that were catching up with them. If he had slowed down for another second, it would have been all over. Grinsel Dragon, Shroud, is stunned by this turn of events. To her, humans are lower forms of life, but they were able to protect themselves. Choking from fatigue, the boy did it. He saved them both from impending death. The girl managed to come to terms with it and start to panic about what was happening. While in the air, Dragon Shroud finds it impossible. A mere human could repel her death breath. Kaidan was worried not about himself, but about his wife, who was happy that her beloved had succeeded, as expected. No, he didn't just reflect the breath of death. Nothing remained of its fire. At that moment, the boy thanks the gods that all the seedlings survived. Kaidan turned towards the dragon with a serious look, causing Grinsel Dragon, Shroud, to shudder. Like a true, well-mannered citizen of another world, he bowed and asked for forgiveness for entering the dungeon without permission, but there was a small condition. Holding his sword out in front of him, with the tip of the blade pointing towards the dragon, he says that if he really has a claim on this matter, he is ready to fight the ruler in order to protect the things that are so dear to him. Still standing with his holy sword extended towards the dragon, he offers the monster from the dungeon to fight the boy in a mortal battle. He bravely invited the dragon to fight in a mortal battle, and he himself hopes that the creature will simply leave. Grinsel Dragon, Shroud, noticed the sword in the hand of the selfless youth. She turned to him. The dragon wanted to say something about the sword he was holding in his hand. The guy couldn't think of anything better to say than to speak out. Kaidan held out his sword in front of him and said that this was the same holy sword that Grinsel Dragon Shroud was thinking about. It was the sword of the immortal king that he had given to him. The guy was hinting that he was very strong. The dragon lands on the ground, saying that this is the wrong answer. This action greatly tensed the young man and put him into a stupor. This holy sword actually belongs to Grinsel Dragon Vale. The monster reached for its treasure. The youth was very afraid of this. Then the lifeless king spoke, addressing the dragon Grinsel Vale. He was right in his words. The young man, like the dragon Grinsel himself, did not expect the sudden appearance of the master, who was covering Kaidan with his back. He used his powerful attack, which blew everyone back like the wind. Sensei knocked the other lord aside. While the winged creature lay lifeless on the ground, the master turned around and said that everything had happened because of him, for which he apologized very much. The young man did not quite understand what he was talking about. Then Plotty intervened in the dialogue, wanting to clarify the whole situation. The immortal king said that since he was looking for those who had infiltrated his mountain, he came to him first. The dragon called him a worthless corpse who dared to invade his territory. After which, the sensei mentioned Kaidan's new neighbor. With the words, "Damn neighbor," the dragon flew away to find the impudent creature disturbing his territory. The lifeless king realized his mistake. Laughing awkwardly, he finished the story of the misunderstanding. After what was said, the young man did not feel any better. He and Plotty feel guilty, since they really did break into the Dragon Mountain without permission. The young man believes that if anyone is to blame, it is them. Sensei does not say anything against it, since he is actually a human being too and understands his friend. For people, dungeons are an excellent source for obtaining raw materials, even ingredients and building materials, an important place for constant earnings and obtaining essential things. The Lifeless King says that, in fact, this is also the reason why people form groups to conquer dungeons. The Immortal King addresses Grinzelvale, saying that for the Dungeon Master, invaders are a common occurrence. The dragon merely gulped a finger at his powerful winged neighbor. He says that getting angry just because a small part of the dungeon was captured and leaving his territory to punish the invaders is completely shameless. Because Grinzelwile was being scolded, he was covered in beads of sweat. His actions as a powerful being are so narrow-minded and, even more so, childish. And having done this, he thinks that he is still worthy of being called the heir of the Geyser Dragon. Looking into the dragon's eyes, the sensei also says that Kaidan is not an opponent of his level. He demands that he immediately return to his mountain. The boy, looking from behind the master's back, tensed up after hearing the words. Grinzelvale denies the Immortal King's demands. He does not understand why a worthless man would possess the sword. His father asked him to take the sword from a dead man. The creature does not understand why a corpse would give the sword to another mortal. The Lifeless King reminds that the sword has its own will and that it chose this man itself. Kaidan is flattered by the sensei's words. During the life of the dragon's father, he began to understand the power of the immortal. The father was afraid of her, unlike Grinzelwile, who only knows how to mindlessly burn everything. It was natural to pay with this sword. The dragon is furious. He is not going to accept such a reason. He is ready to fight this mortal to the death in order to inherit the treasure of the Geyser Dragon. In that case, the lifeless king of evil spirits then offered the creature to fight him. The mighty beast hissed in response. Turning around, he was about to fly away, refusing to participate in the battle just this once. He shouts for the young man to remember this day. Kaidan, unable to think of anything better, began to ask the astonished Grinzelvale to wait a second. The desperate boy grabbed the powerful creature by the tail, causing it to fall flat on the ground. The young man certainly didn't expect that. Grinzel began to shout at the boy in anger, calling him a worthless person who dared to touch his body. The frightened boy rushed to the side, apologizing for his actions. Sensei reminds that the dragon will not be able to defeat them. Kaidan turned to the dragon. If he was not in a hurry, the boy invited him to join them for dinner. Grinzeldragon, Shroud, did not quite understand the boy. The guy shows a ready dish made from a dungeon dragon boar. Kaidan is not sure that the powerful creature will like the steak, but still offers to try it. After thinking for a bit and looking at the small piece of meat, Grinzel threw it into her large mouth. Having excited all his taste buds, the dragon stood up to his full height and cried out that it was very tasty. An explosion occurred from the powerful beast into the sky, which spread as a blast wave throughout the area. Emitting a strong stream of air that blows away the youth, the dragon leaned over and said that it was really delicious. Kaidan was undoubtedly pleased that the dungeon lord liked the steak so much. Grinzel asks for even more meat. Plotty, out of jealousy, also begs for a piece of steak. The boy is excited because he doesn't know how much more needs to be cooked for everyone. A blinding light began to burn brightly behind the children. Turning around, they saw that Grinzel was glowing like a light bulb. Kaidan and Plotty were stunned by this sight. They see the dragon glowing and gradually shrinking. The young people stare at this amazing picture. The silhouette of a huge, powerful creature becomes smaller and smaller with each passing second. This is Grinzeldragon, Shroud, a girl of small stature, in a dress with a fluffy skirt. On her head are two tails, secured with bows. She appeared in all her grace. The still stunned newlyweds realize that the dragon has become a little girl. Kaidan did not think that the beast was female. Sensei explains to them that dragons have a unique power that allows them to take on human form. Grinzel, drooling with anticipation of delicious food, shouts to the boy that she loved the steak he made and admits that she will always love him. The girl stood up at the table, demanding that they bring her meat, and quickly. Plotty is outraged by such behavior of the dragon because she is next in line, although she should stand and wait like this. Kaidan decided to fry some more meat so that there would be enough. The lifeless king decided to taste the cooked delights, and not in vain. He really liked the steak. The boy is happy about it. As the sensei says, the meat was fried perfectly, but the most amazing thing for him is the seasoning. Kaidan said that he used garlic for the flavor, added salt and pepper. For him, this is the simplest dish. The immortal king refuses to believe these words. Even in the royal palace, they cannot make such a delicious dish as this. Grindzel dragon, Shroud, lies helplessly on the ground, having eaten too many steaks. She tells Kaidan not to think too highly of himself. Not far from her, a mermaid with an equally huge belly is chilling. With all severity, the girl tells him not to get carried away. She still has not given up on the holy sword. Sensei reminds her that she is still inexperienced and that this is impossible for now. The boy apologizes, saying that the weapon itself won't let him go. She resigned herself and promised to quietly burn this man to ashes with her breath of death, after which she would easily take the sword for herself. Plotty, sitting down next to her, reminds her that if she does this, she will no longer be able to eat the best steaks of her life. Greensill realized the obstacle to the implementation of her plan. Her body was enveloped in a strong whirlwind. Turning into a dragon, she shouts to Kaidan to remember that one day she will take this sword from his hands. Until that moment, she will come to taste his food. The boy agreed and said goodbye, saying that he would be glad at any time. Grindzel Dragon, Shroud, began to fly away. Plotty asked her to wait a few seconds. She wanted to ask something. She wonders if there are any monster birds in her dungeon. She probably asks this with the best intentions for her husband. After some thought, Grindzel says that she does not know how many, but the monster birds are bony, so they are not good for food. But the mermaid doesn't need their meat, she just wants their eggs. Dragon, Shroud, doesn't quite understand why they need the birds' eggs. Then, with excitement, Plotty says that if they have eggs, Kaidan will be able to make the meat even more delicious than today. Grindzel is pierced by lightning. She instantly turned around and flew home. The mermaid again asks the powerful beast, who creates the wind with his wings, to stop. With her ears perked up, Plotty proudly says that she knows about the ecology of monsters and asks to take her with him. Kaidan did not expect that his wife would want to fly with the ruler. Grindzel Dragon, Shroud agreed without hesitation. The next second she flies away with Plotty sitting on her back, gradually moving away from the land on which the boy and the lifeless king remained. Kaidan was stunned. He just silently watched as the girls flew away. Plotty screamed that she did not intend to return home empty-handed. The lifeless king calls what happened a rather nice picture. The boy agreed without hesitation. Looking at the boundless sky, he says with a smile that it would be better to be like this than to just sit and be bored. Kaidan presents his creation to his wife. She stutters, not believing what he has done. The boy confirms the girl's thoughts, saying that he made the sword from mana metal. With glowing eyes, Plotty looks at the weapon, saying that this sword made of mana metal will be the strongest in the world, not counting the holy sword. She, anticipating wealth, thinks that the guy is going to sell it. It will cost a lot. Her dream of wealth was destroyed. Kaidan was not going to sell it. He upgraded Kakashi. It's a scarecrow that stands on their field and is able to move. The boy is immensely happy with what he did. The girl did not quite understand why specifically for Kakashi. The mermaid frowned in bewilderment like a cloud. Kaidan consoled her, saying that they still had mana metal left. Her frown gave way to joy that the scarecrow with these swords would cut up these annoying birds that were targeting their fields. The guy didn't understand what she meant. The boy looked at what their living dummy had done. Kakashi used a mana sword slash, easily cutting the bird into pieces. Kaidan shouts to the scarecrow that killing is forbidden on his territory. The mermaid, realizing that this is impossible, is a little upset. Kakashi-kun can't even reach the birds that fly and scream above him, as if teasing him. The boy seemed relieved. He looked happy. Plotty didn't quite understand the point of her husband giving the scarecrow swords. Instantly darkening and delighted, the boy shouts that this is cool. His eyes are shining with happiness. While Kaidan is thinking about what kind of equipment to give Kakashi-kun, the girl says that she really doesn't understand male romance. Sitting in front of the vast sea with a fishing rod in his hands and a sword on his back, Kaidan enjoys the process. After all, a lot of time has passed since he went fishing. The guy realized that the last time he went fishing, he thought he caught something big, but he caught a mermaid and suddenly got married. and in an instant, he decided to live with Plotty. A hired hand like him was summoned to another world. He thought he could enjoy his leisurely life here, but no. His life became colorful thanks to the mermaid who became his wife. An immortal king, a dragon. He is always busy. And to get a moment of peace away from all this hustle and bustle, the boy went fishing. This moment is definitely good for him. Suddenly, the boy heard a splash. From under the sea horizon, a boy appeared, with fish fins on his head. Kadan was frightened by the sudden appearance of the silhouette on the boy and asked if perhaps the boy was Plotty's friend. The boy was very friendly with the mermaid man. But the creature was not entirely happy with the stranger. He emerged from waist-deep water with only one threat, that he should die. Kaidan, hearing what was said, was silent. He tensed up. Raising his hand up, Plotty's possible friend shouted for everyone to get ready. From the water began to appear warriors, mermaids, equipped with uniforms. He, as a commander, shouts for everyone to immediately kill the man standing on land, and everyone who will resist their actions. The mermaid warriors, listening to the order of their commander, formed a wave and rushed towards the stunned Kadan. Gradually approaching closer and closer and closer, they pointed their tridents at the boy, who stood in shock, his mouth open. Returning to reality, Kaidan grabbed his holy sword by the hilt in time and swung it. With one movement of his hand, the boy created a whole tornado in which warriors were spinning, trying to attack him. Realizing what he had done, Kaidan stood at a loss, not knowing what to do next. The exhausted bodies of the warriors gurgled in the sea. An agitated Plotty came running to the noise. She was alarmed by the noisy commotion, being somewhere far from her husband. The boy wanted to explain what was happening, but he was interrupted. Possible friend of Plotty's appeared from the water and called her by name. He too was caught in a tornado from the holy sword. The girl was surprised by the appearance of a familiar person. The young mermaid turned out to be not a friend at all, but the brother of the mermaid's wife. They are separated by only a few meters. They are in deathly silence. Only Kaidan does not understand what is happening, because Plotty did not tell that she has a brother. All the mermaid warriors suddenly rushed towards the girl, calling her a princess. Kaidan was even more stunned by the situation he was in. The upset girl silently looked towards the sea, where the mermaids were splashing and calling the princess highness, asking if she was safe. Plotty decided to introduce herself properly. This guy, who attempted to kill her husband, is the girl's older brother, Prince Arowana, the next heir to the throne. The boy was surprised that in front of him was not only a princess, but also the prince himself. He opened his mouth wide in surprise. Plotty proudly crosses her arms over her chest and reminds him that she said she was a princess. Turning to her older brother, the girl decides to introduce the boy to him. The prince doesn't quite understand what's going on. Then the princess shouts that this boy is her husband and his name is Kaidan. The girl is not afraid of the consequences, but the boy is quite scared, so much so that he wanted to stop his wife, the princess, from speaking. The entire army of mermaids, including the prince, heard the words and were stunned. Everyone's mouth opened in shock. Standing her ground, Plotty says that she understands that her older brother came here to bring her back, but she refuses to return to the mermaid kingdom. She asks that these words be conveyed to her mother and father. The prince finds this unforgivable, for the land dweller has defiled her sister by kidnapping his sister. He shouts to his army that the battle is resumed. Plotty's older brother calls her husband the scoundrel and intends to wipe him off the face of the earth and get his little sister back. The princess shouts for her dear not to worry and not to be embarrassed to use a counterattack. In turn, the boy, holding the holy sword in his hands, is afraid to do this because they are not strangers to her. A strong gust of wind coming from behind Plotty and Kaidan blows these fish away into the sea. Their second attempt is not successful. The strongest wind flowed from the dragon veil, who flew into the noise coming from the sea. The prince was shocked that the dungeon master himself had arrived. An entire army of warrior mermaids are afraid of this powerful creature. They are afraid, thinking that the dragon will devour them. The mermaids are afraid that the dragon will destroy them with just one breath. Grinzel Dragon, Shroud landed next to the humans, asking if they were okay. Kaidan thanked him for his help. The prince was stunned that earthly creatures had befriended a dragon. The beast laughed, saying that he would not be able to eat the delicious meat if the boy disappeared. Plotty said not to be proud of it just because he was thanked. The girl's older brother wanted to say something to the three creatures, but the dragon noticed that he was left completely alone. The prince turned around and noticed that the sea was empty behind him. As a reward for not running away from the dragon Grinzel, the daughter of the geyser dragon, she promises to instantly turn him into coal. Kaidan hit the mighty beast on the knee so that he wouldn't dare do that. Vale howled from the blow. The boy says that the man in the sea is Plotty's brother. Vale is surprised by this. Kaidan invites the prince to have dinner with them. The girl's older brother does not understand this behavior of the boy. The boy extends his hand with an offer to talk calmly, explain the situation, and just get to know each other. The prince did not appreciate his generosity, believing that he was plotting something. He did not want to listen to a single word. Plotty, cutting into the conversation, told her brother to hurry and return to his kingdom as soon as possible. The husband yells at his wife, saying that this is not right. The reason her brother came all the way here is because he is worried about his sister. He believes that he should listen to everything that the prince wants to say. The girl did not expect such a reaction from the young man. The elder brother heard this and said that he had changed his mind. Kaidan was blinded by the bright light coming from the prince. He, as a prince, cannot run away from the fight. His honor is at stake, so he accepted the challenge. The boy is stunned by the fact that his brother came out of the sea without clothes and without the slightest embarrassment. Kaidan shouts at him to cover himself with something. The brother thinks it is rude of him, but the girl has foreseen everything and prepared some clothes for him. She hands him some underwear. The boy realized that a similar situation had already happened to his wife. He invited his brother to come to them. Vale, worried, tells Plotty that Kaidan is going to feed him. This is a chance to try a new dish. The girl just remains silent, doubting what is happening. The elder brother saw the house where the newlyweds live and called it pathetic. His sister is a member of the ruling family of mermaids, and Kaidan allows her to live in a dilapidated dwelling. Plotty is angry, and the boy is embarrassed. Standing in his underwear, the prince shouts at the boy, accusing him of slavery, using his sister. Then Plotty drew his attention to another building. This is the barn where they store the meat they get from the mountains and the vegetables from the fields. The older brother is stunned not only by the shape and size, but also by the mysterious walls of the building. Kaidan explained that this is plaster that he found in the mountains. The sister called her brother. She points to another building. It's a brewery where they do the fermentation. Kaidan says dreamily that they're waiting for the miso and soy sauce when they're done. The older brother doesn't understand what foreign words the boy is saying. Plotty notes that her husband has knowledge that they do not have. He is good at cooking and also strong in combat. Kaidan can do anything. The warehouse that the girl showed before is her magic room. Kaidan, as a husband, always takes good care of her. While Plotty brags about her husband, the boy invites the prince to sit on a chair. The young man cooked a new dish and recently made a garden table. He invites people to the table to drink tea and talk, but there was already a girl at the table. The older brother did not understand where this child came from, but Kaidan explained that it was Grinzel Vale, her human form. The girl hurries him so that the boy brings a new dish. The prince is stunned to see a dragon sitting in front of him. Plotty, offended, says that she is always like this when she asks for food. Kaidan introduces a new dish, zenzai. When he grew soybeans for the ingredient, the adzuki beans grew too. They all took the utensils in their hands and began to try this dish. The brother was very careful, since this food was unfamiliar to him. Everyone tried the traditional dessert soup at the same time, after which they said that it was very tasty. While the brother and sister enjoyed the taste, Vale asked for more, but there was no soup left. The beans grew by accident. There weren't many of them. Everyone is angry that there are no more of the tasty things left. The girls turned to the prince, accusing him of coming at the wrong time and of there being no soup left because of him. The elder brother fell to his knees, apologizing to the boy. His skills are incomparable to anything, as if Kaidan were a saint or a sage. The young man asks him to stop doing this, but the prince is truly convinced that his sister is in love with him. Then he said that he was entrusting his sister to her. Plotty was happy about this, but Kaidan wasn't sure that it was okay. Does not understand why he is against it. The young man, when he first heard that the mermaid was a princess from the kingdom of mermaids. If she has such a high status, then he cannot choose a husband for himself so easily. He thought about the fact that many people's expectations were placed on her, but she started screaming that it was not so. She was married only to him, and she did not care about other people's expectations. She decided how to live for herself and called him a fool. The brother tries to calm his sister by saying that Mr. Saint does not know his wife's circumstances. The prince wanted to tell the truth. But Vale said that there was a conflict over the sovereignty of the surface between humans and demonic creatures. Now it reached the mermaids, who were neutral. A political marriage was imposed. The brother is shocked that the girl knows. She reminded him of who she is. For several hundred years, it reaches her ears, whether she wants it or not. In this world, there is a war between humans and magical creatures. Kaidan is summoned to this world as a hero to fight these creatures. Brother says that now there will be increased interference from both sides. Rulers are forced to choose. If the mermaids do not choose a side, they will become enemies for both sides, a target for their attacks. It is said that the upper echelons of the kingdom are discussing for which race Plotty must get married. For Kaidan, this is something. The brother believes that the only way for Plotty to save the kingdom is to flee. Having met her here in peace, he, as an older brother, wants to fulfill his sister's wish. The prince turns to the girl, saying that he is glad that she has met a good man. The girl is undoubtedly happy with these words. Kneeling down, the brother asks to protect his sister and marry her officially. Kaidan asks him to stop, but is quite willing to make the marriage official. Then Vale interrupted the young men's conversation, asking about marriage. The guy, embarrassed, answered positively. Grinsel Dragon, Shroud, will also marry. Kaidan is stunned by this, and Plotty looks jealously at her rival. Vale was thinking about how she could get the Holy Sword. It turns out that if they are married, then the property is divided. For dragons, the span of a human life is like the blink of an eye. Moreover, if she is his wife, she will be able to eat exquisite dishes every day. She asked if he would marry her. Kaidan refused. The girl was shocked, although the guy already had Plotty. For Vale, it doesn't know anything. If the male is strong, it is normal to have several females. She called the guy the master. Kaidan replied that he was not her master, and even if he was strong, he was against polygamy. Dragon, Shroud burst into tears at this answer. She doesn't understand why this is so. She thinks it's because she's not as strong as the immortal king, or the guy hates her. She, continuing to sob, demanded that the boy marry her. Kaidan agreed, if only she would stop crying. Vale screamed happily, Plotty was shocked, and the young man apologized to his brother. The prince said that fathers who have daughters all over the world have something in common, and yet outwardly, the women are terribly annoying. Plotty is upset and irritated by the behavior of her brother and the newly made one. The newlyweds are walking along the shore. The brother has gone home to report to his father and mother. They are waiting for their parents' approval to officially marry. The girl is worried about Kaidan, thinking that something is wrong. She ran away from home when the royal time became unbearable and then met him. Because she was caught, she was forced to become his bride. She has fun here. Her darling's cooking is delicious. She wants to be with him forever, but she only bothers him, although the girl cannot return to the kingdom of mermaids. Kaidan just smiled. Knowing her circumstances, he has no intention of changing the way they live now. The boy received strength from God. People noticed that he was useless in battle, so he came here. The boy does not call himself a strong man. He believes that they can strive for their happy life. And from that day on, he, embarrassed, tells the girl to stay with him. Plotty looks at him with burning eyes. Out of happiness, she jumped into the arms of her future official husband. They are happy together. The hugging boys were called out by Vale, saying that he was making her wait. The girl continued to call him master. Being near their feet, she rages on the ground, saying that she is hungry. Kaidan and Plotty looked at each other. The boy decided to do something. He will give her a treat as a wedding present. The mermaid is also happy about this, and the girl says that anything will do, as long as the guy does it quickly. Having decided to build a house, Kaidan thought they needed more help. Plotty held out a starfish, thinking that was what he was asking for, but the boy said that was not what he meant. Then he explained that he was thinking about the workers. Plotty asked again. Kaidan replied that they needed to do something with the field now because he wanted to sort out the harvest and collect what was already ripe. He also added that he was already busy because he had started making miso and soy sauce, and he had a wife. So Kaidan said he wanted to build a house. Plotty was very happy, and the Undead King said it was very exciting. With these words, he scared the heroes. They did not expect his presence. They said he came unexpectedly. The boy then asked if something bad had happened, but the king reassured him, saying that he was simply free. So he dropped in to visit them and that he was fine. Kaidan felt relieved, and the guest said that he had another gift of monometal and handed the guy a piece. The boy was amazed at how big it was and said that it was a great help. The undead asked him if he really needed the stone. The boy nodded and said that he could make a lot of household items with it. And then he added that it was just in time because he was short of workers. The king asked what he meant by hands. And Kaidan explained that the thing was that Plotty's brother had noticed that they were living in a terrible house. So the young man said that now he would build something completely different. He would build the house with all his strength. Plotty was very surprised and suggested that in that case they should ask the Undead King for help. Kaidan thought that if the Undead King made miso, everything would go much faster. But he dismissed these thoughts, considering it stupid. However, the Undead King asked how many workers he needed and if he could bring them here. Kaidan was very surprised and, thinking that he had misheard, asked again, but the king of the undead asked in response whether 10 would be enough for him. The young man said, confused, that he would be grateful, but he did not understand where he would get so much. The Undead King disappeared, asking him to wait a little. After some time, Kaidan and Plotty couldn't believe their eyes. In front of them stood the king of the undead, who introduced humanoid monsters from his dungeon, 5 orcs and 5 goblins. He explained that these monsters were born in his dungeon and they obey his orders. Therefore, he ordered them to obey the saint so that the young man could use them as he needed. Kaidan was very surprised. After that, he greeted the monsters and introduced himself shyly. However, the monsters stood silently and motionless. Kaidan did not understand why they did not react, and the Undead King explained that they did not have the ability to speak. He said that they only had enough intelligence to follow orders, but they lacked self-awareness and the instinct for self-preservation. Kaidan understood. The king added that he did not need to give them a reward, and what's more, they feed on mana from the air, so he did not need to feed them. Plotty was very happy with this news. She shouted enthusiastically that Kaidan would solve all his problems with them. The guy was silent, so Plotty asked, "Is that so?" The young man agreed and said that she was right, after which he bowed gratefully to the king and thanked him with all his heart. The undead replied that there was nothing wrong with that and, wishing him luck with building the house, disappeared. The guy clenched his fist, and he joyfully cried out about the proposal to join forces and build an awesome house. The monsters continued to stand there without a reaction, so the young man felt like he was saying it into the void. Then Kaidan began to give orders. Orcs carried logs, goblins sawed boards. He taught them how to use the machines. After some time, the foundation was built. Plotty said that the monsters were amazing, and Kaidan said that he was not sure at first, but the house was turning out much bigger. He added that the physical strength of orcs is indeed suitable for hard work, and goblins have skilled hands. The young man said that goblins make mistakes when doing difficult work, but if you teach them diligently, they learn little by little and become better. They even learn to cut grass and weave from it. The guy smiled and said that even though they were monsters, watching them work, he couldn't help but want to be nicer to them. Plotty smiled at these words of her beloved husband. However, she explained that there was no need to sympathize too much with them, since they were created from mana, so they could not be called living beings. Kaidan put his hand behind his head and said that this was true, but everyone should be given the opportunity to live well. Plotty went on to explain that magical creatures commonly use these to fight humans. They send large armies, assuming that the monsters will die anyway, in which case they can always be replaced by a dungeon. Kaidan was surprised by this, but still thought that from food to waste processing, all this was done thanks to monsters. Then he sighed and resigned himself, realizing that this was exactly the world. This and nothing else. Then he heard the goblin stumble and fall along with the things he was carrying. Kaidan turned around, and he ran to him, asking if he was okay. The young man helped the goblin up and continued asking if he was hurt. However, the goblin remained silent. Kaidan remembered that they were not reacting, but he wondered if he really wanted to talk to them. At that moment, the goblin responded, which brought the boy out of his thoughts. He replied that he was fine, and then he turned to Kaidan and repeated that he was fine. The boy and Plotty were completely shocked by what he said. After that, the guy dropped to one knee and asked again if he was okay. The goblin answered yes. And he added, addressing Kaidan as his lord, that he wanted to work more. The goblin next to him added that he did too. Kaidan was shocked to see the other one speaking as well. And then goblins and orcs started coming from all sides and saying they wanted to work for the milord. Plotty didn't believe it, but she said that it seemed like the monsters were now self-aware. The boy cried out that self-awareness couldn't just appear that easily. After which he looked at his hands and came to the realization that perhaps it was because of the power he wielded, because of his skill, power of superiority, deciding that it was too incredible and that he should handle this skill carefully. The young man clenched his fist and decided that if he used all his strength he could talk to them. He ran up to the goblins, hugged them, and thanked them sincerely. Plotty thought that now they would not be able to use them and refuse them later. The goblins rejoiced and threw the hero into the air. After some time, the large house was completely finished. Everyone was happy about it, but Grinzel was amazed. She asked everyone what had happened there while she was gone. Plotty, addressing her as a stupid dragon, ordered them to listen and laugh, and then, with a victorious smile, said that this was her and her husband's love nest. Grinzel ran inside, saying that she needed to look around. Plotty tried to stop her, but the dragon in human form was amazed and admired, saying that she had never seen such a building. Kaidan looked in and addressed her, and asked her to take off her shoes and then leave them in a special place. Vale did not understand, so the young man explained that this way she would not damage the tatami. The girl thought about it and, taking off her shoes, began to roll around on the tatami and ask what kind of bed it was and why it felt so nice. Plotty asked if the girl was going to stay. The young man replied that there was nothing wrong with that, since that was the reason he had made such a big house. Plotty became wary and asked if humanoid monsters would live there as well. Kaidan replied that that was the plan, however. When he told them this, they said he was talking about something ridiculous, because they couldn't possibly have something so incredible. Then they said that their home was originally in a dungeon. Kaidan thought that this would cause trouble for the Undead King. Then he said that they needed to build a house for them with lots of rooms. It would be called an apartment building. The goblins wanted to object, but he added that he wanted to do a lot more, like a bathroom or a kitchen, and help wouldn't hurt. He looked at the monsters and asked if they could help him with this. The goblins were very flattered and answered with a unanimous yes. Plotty didn't understand what kind of invasion this was, because she thought that only she and Kaidan would live in the love nest. Then one of the goblins ran up, whom Kaidan addressed as Gobukichi. Plotty asked what kind of name that was, and the boy explained that Gobukichi was the best sewer among the goblins. Gobukichi reported that the thing the boy ordered was ready. Kaidan was happy about this and then went into one of the rooms and joyfully cried out that it was indeed a futon. Plotty asked what a futon was, and Kaidan explained that it was his gift to his wife. And then he added that he grew cotton next to the grass to make tatami. He wanted to have a futon in their new home. Then he suggested that Plotty lie there. She didn't understand, but decided to try it and lay down on him, asking if it was right. And after lying there for a bit, she screamed that it was really comfortable. She didn't even have words. The guy was glad that she liked it. Kaidan sat down next to her and apologized for the fact that she still had to sleep on the bare floor. Plotty thanked him sincerely for this. And then she turned to Gobukichi and thanked him too. The goblin didn't expect this and was embarrassed. After this, the heroes cried out that from this day on, they would try to work even harder, so that from now on, their farming lifestyle would be wonderful. At this time, a large sailing ship was approaching the land with a loud whistle of the wind, cutting through the waves. One of the goblins was filling a bucket with water on the shore, sighing heavily, and then he saw a sailing ship on the horizon. He looked closely and wondered what it was, because he had never seen anything like it before. Sometime later, in the house, Kaidan handed a glass of water to Plotty's brother and asked if something had happened. The man looked around in amazement and explained that the house was simply amazing, and then added that God must have blessed the young man with special powers. Kaidan agreed and laughed sheepishly. They sat opposite each other, and Kaidan said what today meant. Arowana agreed and explained that it was about the wedding between the young man and Plotty. He said that the news would soon spread and that he had already spoken about it with his father. The boy asked about what they told him. Arowana replied that at first the father was confused, however. The man told him about the boy and his strength, after which the father agreed. Arowana explained that the thing is that he does not belong to any race. Kaidan understood and replied that he was glad, but added that Plotty was tense because of the political marriage. Then he asked about the people and magical creatures. Arowana replied that they were furious. Kaidan assumed that would be the case. Brother Plotty said that their father had declared that his daughter would marry a great saint. Kaidan was astonished by these words and asked if they had resigned themselves. The man replied that they were outraged when they lost the opportunity to marry Plotty, but since the enemies were also targeting her, it was better to leave things as they were. Kaidan said he understood and was glad that things were settled for the time being. But at that moment, Arowana dropped his forehead to the floor and fell to his knees. Kaidan was surprised by this and asked what happened. Arowana replied that they would do everything possible to avoid getting the boy into trouble, so in return he asked them to take care of Plotty. Kaidan calmly asked Arowana to stop and get up. He added that he was glad to be with Plotty and, moreover, he was grateful for it. And then he told me that he had come here alone, and if it weren't for Plotty, he would probably still be living alone. And, just like the king of the undead, without even noticing it, he too might have forgotten his name. Arowana was surprised by the mention of the Undead King, and Kaidan explained that he was talking about a neighbor, an immortal king, also called the Undead King. The man was completely shocked. At that moment, a goblin ran up to them in a hurry and frightened. He said that there was bad news and reported that the enemy was attacking from the coast. Many monsters had landed, and they were magical creatures. The goblin said that orcs and other goblins were fighting them now. Kaidan and Arowana were shocked by the news. Kaidan asked if magical creatures had come here. Arowana replied that it was impossible because this place was a top-level secret. Kaidan was shocked by this information too. Then they noticed a ship in the distance. Brother Plotty said that it was definitely a ship of magical creatures. Kaidan asked the orc in front of him if Orkubo, who was at the scene, was okay. The orc stepped aside, and Kaidan saw a demonic woman kneeling. Orkubo explained that this person was Astress the Milky, although he was not sure. Kaidan looked at the girl, and she indignantly shouted at him to stop staring and thinking about something of his own. And then she introduced herself as Astress the Heartless. She is a demon lord, one of the 4 heavenly kings. The orcs reported to the boy that she had come to kill their lord, so they captured her. Kaidan was surprised. Then he looked at the number of bones nearby and asked what it was. The goblin explained that these were skeleton warriors led by magical creatures. He also added that there were about 100 of them, but they destroyed them all. Kaidan was shocked that 100 against 10 lost. Then the young man approached the monsters and said that he knew how strong they were, but asked them not to take any more risks because if they died, he would be sad. The monsters replied that they would die for him. Kaidan was indignant because he had just said that it was impossible. Astress was outraged at being ignored. Arowana approached her and asked how she knew about this place. The demon lord was shocked to see the prince of the mermaid kingdom. She told him that they had become stupid because of their easy life, and that they should not underestimate the intelligence of the demons. She cut the rope with her nails and said that even if an eternity passed, they would still not understand, and so she could free herself. Astress stood up to her full height and drew her sword, then said that her goal was to take Princess Plotty and kill her thief, the great saint. Then she pointed the sword at Kaidan and said that she meant him. Everyone around became wary. Arowana said that it is a demon lord who rules the upper echelons of demons, and it thirsts for blood. On the battlefield, it is a monster that makes even its allies tremble in fear. So the man rushed forward, saying he would try to figure it out, but Kaidan asked him to stop. The Undead King asked the same. Kaidan turned around and was happy, but Arowana tensed up. The undead asked why it was so noisy. Then the man also turned around and cried out when he saw the king. Kaidan smiled and introduced them to each other. Astress and Arowana screamed in fear, saying that he was called the World's Scourge, and were surprised that the boy knew him. The lifeless king said that he heard that the demon was going to kill Kaidan. The boy confirmed it. Astress was very tense, wondering what was going on here, and then she heard a noise in the air and raised her head. She saw a huge dragon in the sky, who asked them what was going on. Kaidan approached Grizzle and greeted her, while Astress was shocked by his appearance. Plotty got off the dragon and ran to the hero. She asked him if he was okay, and the boy said yes. Arowana asked her where she had been, and Grizzle explained that they had been looking for Tonkatu eggs in the mountains. Astress fell to the ground, and the dragon explained that after that, they accidentally saw a demon ship in the ocean, and they became curious, so they returned. The dragon asked if this lower demon was going to kill Kaidan. She explained that harming her master would make her an enemy. She also explained that she considered demons to be worms, so their race would be destroyed. Kaidan stopped Vale, and the dragon, startled, apologized. Then the boy approached the demon on the ground, and he made an offer. If she promised not to be their enemy, they would let her go home. Everyone stood behind the hero. Astress interrupted and told him not to dare insult her, because she was one of the 4 heavenly kings. But her whole body was shaking with fear. She tried to pull herself together and control herself because it was a disgrace to the power of the demon lord. And then, clenching her hand, she cried out that she had a counteroffer after she rose to her feet. She pointed her sword at Kaiden and said that he would fight her one-on-one, and if he won, she would listen to him. Grinzel was outraged by the demon's impudence and said that she would roast her now, but Kaidan stopped her. He said that he had decided that no one would stop him from living in this world. Plotty blushed and was flattered. The boy raised his sword and said that he accepted the demon lord's challenge. The woman thought about how reckless he was and also got into a fighting stance. She looked at the guy and thought that even if he had strong allies, he was still a simple man, so she could grab him. But then she looked more closely at the sword and noticed that it was the legendary dark sword Dreischwartz. The sword fell from her hands and she lost consciousness. Everyone was surprised by this, and Kaidan asked why she fainted. Grinzel suggested burying her so that she would become fertilizer for their fields. Kaidan stopped the dragon. After some time, Grinzel was flying, holding Astress, who was trembling in fear, in her paw at a great height. Kaidan asked her to return home, which she was not very happy about, and it seems the sailors were so shocked to see Vale that they decided to abandon Astress and retreated. The girl came to her senses and turned to the dragon, asking her why she served the man. Grinzel sighed contemptuously and replied with an ominous look that she was not obliged to explain anything to her. And then she smiled and thought to herself that no one should know how exquisite the master's dishes were. Astress continued to fly in her paw, wondering who this guy was who had subdued 2 disasters. Some time had passed since the recent events. Kaidan, Plotty, and Grisel looked on in surprise. In front of them stood Astress the Heartless with 2 demons. The boy asked why they were there. The goblin who brought them explained that they wanted to talk to him. Plotty rushed at Astress, screaming for her to leave. Kaidan asked her to calm down and asked what had happened. The 2 demon girls next to her respectfully asked to hear them out and explained that they had been kicked out of the Demon King's army. The heroes were surprised, and Astress sighed and said that it was not true, and added that she was the only one kicked out of the army, so she told the demons to go back. They asked how she could say such a thing, since they had sworn to serve her for the rest of their lives. Grinzel in human form was not pleased to see this, so she turned into a dragon and told them to be quiet or she would burn them to ashes. Kaidan stopped her, threatening to leave her without dinner. The dragon turned back and the shocked demons hid behind Astress. The boy asked why Astress was excluded from the Demon King's army. The woman lowered her head and said that she had failed the mission to capture the princess, and her squad of monsters had been defeated, and that was not all. She added that allowing a dragon to cause chaos on the battlefield was a serious offense. Kaidan asked about what kind of dragon was on the battlefield between humans and demons, after which he looked at Vale, and she, folding her hands behind her head, replied that she had been asked to take her back. Astress summed up that this was why she had been stripped of her title of Sky King and banished from the country. The demon girl next to her said that this war meeting was strange because the decision was made in a great hurry while the demon lord was away, as if everything was being done to get rid of her. And another girl added that Mr. Reverian is behind this, because he is always up to something, and now it is his doing. Astress stopped them, saying that there was no need to blame anyone, because in the demon army there was nothing more important than strength, so it was only her fault for failing the mission due to her helplessness. Kaidan realized from all this that the reason for her exile was the recent unrest. The demons were crying because Astress had dedicated herself to the army. Vale angrily asked what she wanted to talk about, and Plotty cautiously clarified that it was about responsibility for what she had done. Astress answered negatively and said that she now needed to start a new life, so she wanted to know something. Then she began to talk about how the local orcs and goblins were stronger than her, and also had self-awareness and could speak, which was usually impossible. And besides, Kaidan was worshipped by 2 world plagues, the dragon and the king of the undead. She clenched her fist and said she wanted to know why. She said she needed to know, so she knelt down and asked to be allowed to work for the boy. Vale and Plotty were completely shocked, and the guy calmly answered yes. The girls angrily said that they were against it, and the guy shyly answered that he didn't even know if working here would help her in any way. And then he added that since she had decided to leave her past life, to settle in new lands and start from scratch, he wanted to help. Vale laughed maliciously, saying that they would try to kill him again later. Kaidan looked at her confidently and said that he would have to accept the challenge then. The girl thought that everyone would benefit from this. The demons next to Astress also asked to stay. Kaidan replied that he would be only too glad. However, he immediately warned that while they were here, it was forbidden to shed blood. This was his condition. Vale was unhappy that the owner was so naive, and Plotty sighed, saying that this was very similar to Kaidan. Astress bowed her head and replied that she agreed, and added that as long as she was here, she would obey and take on any job. That's why she asks for an order. Kaidan was delighted, and said that in that case he would like to ask for something. The demon girls nearby introduced themselves as Batemi and Belena. Some time passed. The demons were working with hoes in the field. They did not quite understand why they were sent to work in the fields. Kaidan wasn't sure if they could handle it, so he thought about giving them some chores around the house. Astress firmly said that she could handle it, because the thing wasn't more complicated than a weapon. Batemi objected. She saw that Astress was constantly digging the same place. Batemi explained that it was a hoe, and it was used to loosen the soil and make beds. Astress realized that she was making a mistake. Kaidan was surprised that she knew this. Batemi explained that she had experience. However, Astress and Belena are aristocrats, so their skin never had calluses. So she asked to give everything to her. Astress objected and said that she had decided to serve the great saint at any cost, so she could handle it. Kaidan was glad that these demons were so diligent. After that, the guy said that in that case, Batemi would go with the goblins to make beds. They said they understood. Then he told Astress and Belene that they would plant seeds in these beds every 30 centimeters. The girls also answered that they understood. After some time, they continued working. Astress and Belena sat and buried the plants, and Batemi loosened the soil. Astress winced and noticed that her lower back was in great pain, unable to rise to her full height. She didn't expect the job to be so difficult, and Belena screamed sharply. Astress asked what had happened, and the girl replied that there was something in the ground and it was wriggling. Astress jerked, and her lower back snapped. They screamed, sometimes from pain, sometimes from the disgusting sight of the ground. Kaidan looked and thought that it was too much for them. After some time, Astress walked next to the orcs and goblins. She chuckled and said that since the hunt was further, she would be able to show herself. Then she asked Plotty what they were hunting. The girl said a square boar because Kaidan wanted to replenish his meat supplies. Astress said to give this job to her so that she could make up for the field work. Then they heard the sound of footsteps and looked ahead. The sounds were coming from the deepest part of the forest. Everyone froze in anticipation. A flock of square boars appeared running in front of them. Astress screamed to Belena and Batemi to be ready, but something immediately flew past Astress's head. They were orcs and goblins. They were dealing with the boars with instant swings of their axes. In an instant, the entire flock was defeated, and the humanoid monsters did not make a sound, having already accepted this as routine. Astress was surprised by their strength, and Belena told them to look at their tools. The axes and sickles were made of mana metal. Plotty sighed and said that their tools and weapons were made entirely of mana metal, noting how extravagant it was. The demons couldn't believe it and said that it was unusual because metal of such purity was rare to see. After that, Batemi said that now it became clear to her why they were so strong. Astress said that it was not so, and she explained that these guys were strong when they first met, and they didn't even have weapons then. Belena and Batemi couldn't believe it. Plotty said that if Astress was interested, her hoe was also made of mana metal. The girl shuddered and thought that it was not the weapon that was the problem, but the fact that they did not know how to use it. Then she screamed and said that they could no longer just stand there and were going to hunt too. After some time, the pack of boars was dead. Plotty thanked everyone for their work. Astress, having received several times and breathing heavily, said that they had not even started. The orcs and goblins stood as if nothing had happened. The girl thought about how, given the strength of these boars and the hunt in the mountains, she hadn't expected it to be so difficult. Plotty licked her lips, rolled up her sleeve, and said that it was time to butcher them. After that, she went to the dead bodies and began to process them, telling them that they could not carry them like that, so she would cut them up and freeze them. Some time later, at home, Kaidan was making soup in a saucepan in the kitchen from the ingredients, tasting it. Then I heard Plotty say they were back. The guy turned around happily and said that it was just in time. He looked out of the kitchen and said that dinner was ready, but noticing the dark demons, he asked what had happened. Plotty told him that the whole day had not gone as they had thought. Astress, with her head down, said that she was one of the 4 heavenly kings. feared by both humans and mermaids, and had come here after losing that title. The locals here were incredibly strong, and their weapons were incomparable. And so she realized that she was helpless. Kaidan confidently answered that she was not helpless. The woman was surprised, and the young man explained that it was not about her strength or influence, but about those who swore to be with her, looking at Batami and Belena. And he added that this means that she has a power called charisma, so she should believe in herself more, and then she will open up new paths. The girls were inspired and looked at each other, eagerly clenching their fists and smiling. Then Kaidan said that it was time to start eating. Vale was very pleased. The guy suggested that they eat outside, since the weather was so nice. They placed the dishes on the table in the yard, which looked very appetizing, and sat around it. Astress asked what it was because she had never seen such dishes. Vale asked about it too. Kaidan explained that it was grilled boar meat with ginger and tanjiro soup. The girls were very skeptical about this explanation and hesitantly took the plates. Then Astress tried it and scared Kaidan by crying because of how delicious it was. Plotty and Vale were also incredibly happy, eating quickly. Kaidan was very happy to see this and told them to eat as much as they wanted and enjoy themselves, and to try again tomorrow. Some time passed. Astress was carrying a basket of food and said that she did not see Kaidan and Plotty anywhere. Belena said that they had some business at sea. Then Astress nodded and said that she had finished picking vegetables and asked what else needed to be done. Belena replied that she needed to weed and clean the house. Vale told Astress to plow and work. She lay on the porch of the house and said that whoever does not plow will die of hunger. Batimi asked what about her then. Vale got angry and asked about what the lesser demon was muttering. Then she sighed and said that she was looking after the house. Baitami and Belena did not object, although they were very unhappy, and then they shouted that they would guard the house until Kaidan came. At this time, on the coast, Plotty was in the water and her legs returned to her tail. She told Kaidan, who was sitting next to her, that sometimes it was necessary to return to this form. The guy asked her if it was easier for her to live in the sea than on land. The girl looked at him, and then she confidently answered that it was the same everywhere, because her means of transforming into a human being was of the highest quality. That's why it's convenient for her to live on land. Kaidan smiled. He knew it wasn't true, but he was glad of his wife's tact. Then he asked her what she wanted to talk about. She said that sea monsters come out onto land in this place. She said that there are dungeons and caves, in the mountains and, of course, in the ocean, and that monsters come out from there too. Kaidan asked if fish fertilizer, herring, and starfish are also monsters. Plotty nodded and said that they were both useful and not so useful ones. Besides, there was another monster from the strongest 5 in the ocean. Kaidan's face darkened. Plotty explained that such an opponent was a piece of cake. He replied that he would not let her go alone, but how would he breathe underwater? She smiled and said that she was prepared. Then she pulled out the plexus and said that it was a means of breathing underwater. She gave it to the boy and told him to put it in his mouth and chew it. And while he was chewing, he could breathe. He began to chew, and Plotty told him not to swallow it, and that it was not ready yet, so he would not be able to breathe if he did not chew. Kaidan swallowed and said that he understood everything. The girl froze and asked why he swallowed it, and then gave him another one and called him to swim after her. The guy dived under the water and tried to breathe, which he did successfully, which surprised him. Then he saw Plotty in front of him, waving happily and calling him to follow her. She was very beautiful. She was always on land, so Kaidan began to forget that she was actually a mermaid. He swam after her and was glad that such a beautiful princess was his wife. Then Kaidan blushed, and the girl, seeing this, asked about breathing and whether he was chewing. Kaidan waved his hands, saying that everything was fine. After which Plotty felt something and turned around. She said that salt, minerals, and other elements from which she felt a flow of strong malice. Kaidan began to look in the same direction, thinking about what was there. A huge fish with glowing eyes appeared in front of the heroes. Plotty screamed that it was her, the spotted moray eel. The fish made a loud sound and swam straight towards the heroes, frightening Kaidan. The girl shouted that she wouldn't let her move, so the guy should sort it out further, after which she threw the flasks with the potion. They crashed into the body of a spotted moray eel, causing it to burn and scream loudly. The guy was surprised by the fire underwater and noted his wife's amazingness. He took out his sword and, looking at it, swung it with all his might. The spotted moray eel split into 2 parts in front of them. Plotty shouted that her husband was the strongest of all, and the guy was very surprised at his strength. The body of the fish sank to the bottom. Then Kaiden noticed and started waving his hands. Plotty said that since the problem was solved, they could go home. But the guy managed to attract attention and gestured to Plotty that this was not all, after which he began to dive to the bottom. He then began to cut the seaweed from the bottom with his sword. Plotty did not understand the meaning of his actions, explaining that these seaweeds were useless even in magic, but their rapid growth was troublesome. She asked him what he wanted to do with them, and the guy smiled. They floated to the surface, and after a while on land the guy began to cut them, humming about the taste. They were cooking on the rocks in a pot. Kidan explained that the seaweed was similar to wakame and wanted to cook it with that moray eel. Plotty asked if he really wanted to make a dish with moray eel and seaweed. Kaidan said he decided to try it. Then he picked up the plate and said that all that was left was to sprinkle some salt and pepper, and it was ready. Wakame and moray eel soup from another world. Plotty looked at the plate skeptically and tried it, immediately beaming with happiness because of the taste. She said she couldn't believe that this useless ingredient tasted so delicious and crunchy. Kadan said he was glad she liked it. Even if it seemed useless, it was good that it was useful. He also said that it would take a lot of salt to get all the slime out, so he would leave the moray eel there and go home. Plotty said she would help. She also added that this taste would surprise everyone, and her respect for her husband skyrocketed. They finished the dish. The guy got embarrassed and asked again about it, and Plotty said not to doubt. Kaidan said that it was not only his merit, because many people help him. Plotty was surprised by these words, and the young man reminded her that they had started living here together, and because of the neighbors and new residents, it had become too lively. So he increasingly understands the importance of support. Plotty was flattered by such a speech, but the guy added that he realized something else, namely, that the two of them needed to spend more time together. The girl was taken aback by such words, and Kaidan explained that they were newlyweds. Plotty blushed at this, and the hero suggested that she come back here to swim again, just the two of them. The girl agreed. She also added that she needed to make a new means for breathing underwater so that he could also speak. The guy nodded. At this time. Demon Castle. The man summed up that meant that Astress the Heartless, one of the four kings, was not only excluded from the army, but also banished. In front of him, they started talking about the meeting where they would choose the next king. But the man interrupted them and asked who would allow them to banish Astress. One of the men replied that, as had already been said, she had made a grave mistake. The man with the gloomy face addressed the speaker as Reverian the Poor. He told him not to play poor because it was his doing. Then the man stood up, took his sword from its sheath and held it to Reverian's neck. He said that this was treachery. Reverian began to beg for mercy, trembling with fear, addressing the man with the sword as the demon lord Zidane. Zidane told Reverian to sort out this mess before he returned, at least to the point where he could take responsibility. Reverian bowed his head, and another man nearby turned to Zidane, holding out a note and saying that these were the coordinates. Zidane replied that he understood, and then thought of Kaidan, saying that even a demon lord could make a move when he was enraged. A little bit into the past, other summoned heroes. This girl Momoko Akesaka, a very ordinary girl. More precisely, she was like that. She was currently fighting a horde of monsters, using a second-tier divine scythe spell. With one swing, the ground from the girl to the horde broke, and all the monsters died, falling onto the destroyed ground. Momoko is summoned from another world. She was given the skill Divine Scythe, level 2, and now she fights demons on behalf of humans. The girl had a hard time getting used to this world. No usual amenities, no electronics. Food and clothing are of poor quality. Bread can kill a person, fleas jump on the bed, rough clothes make your skin itch. Many of the summoned were unable to adapt, leading to their deaths. There were still about 10 people when Momoko was summoned, and she wonders how many are left. She thought that maybe he was gone, the guy who turned out to have no skills at all. Because, in this cruel world, you can't survive without skills. However, Momoko Akesaka is different. She has a great skill, so the king values her, and she shouldn't forget how lucky she is. That's why she fights. Alone, and with one of the strongest skills in this world, she cuts through monsters. There is no end to them. The army of demons seems countless. Wherever you look, there are monsters everywhere. She looks at them and thinks that this is the front line. And she will not lose. She cannot lose, so she will protect this world. However, at that moment, a huge dragon flew over the girl fighting the Demon King's army. Everyone below it stopped in fear. Momoko Akasaka could not check with her eyes and shouted that it was a dragon, one of the plagues of this world. No one could take their eyes off him, but to see him meant death. Even for them, he was a monster, so everyone wondered why he was here. Even Momoko, a summoned hero with a skill that kills in one hit, couldn't defeat this monster. The other people also shouted that they were retreating because he would wipe them out with one breath. Everyone wondered if this dragon had come to destroy them all. The dragon descended to the ground, and he spoke. He ordered them to listen to him, addressing everyone as if they were lower tribes. People were amazed that the dragon was talking, not expecting the dragons could talk. The dragon introduced herself as the daughter of Grazer, the great king of dragons, Grinzelvale, and she said that today the master had instructed her to return this slob that he had thrown out of his paw. Astress the Heartless fell in front of everyone. The demons immediately recognized her and told them to catch her quickly. Vale explained that Astress was originally destined to die, but the master had decided otherwise. So he ordered everyone to listen and not miss a word. She said that demons or humans, it doesn't matter, but if they insult her master, she will burn their cities to the ground with this flame. Vale released a fiery breath from her mouth into the air. Everyone around saw this flash of fire. Both humans and demons could barely stand on their feet, most of them falling to the ground from the flow of magic, and Momoko was surprised by this terrible power. Then Vale said that everyone should know that her master was Saint Kaidan. She ordered that they never forget this name because the enemy of the saint would become her enemy. Then she flew away. The people, many of whom were sitting on the ground, uttered the name of Saint Kaidan and were surprised that even the dragon obeyed him, but no one knew who it was. In the present time, Kaidan and Plotty's home. They had built several buildings and plowed a large number of fields in front of them. Kaidan was currently eating and drinking from a glass using chopsticks, satisfied with the taste with a smile. Then he stood up and said that today, too, he had to work in the field, looking at the mountains in the distance and stretching. Then he heard someone approaching and turned around. A male voice asked him if he was Saint Kaidan. The boy looked at the man in surprise, agreed, and asked who the man was. He replied that he was the demon lord Zidane. Kaidan was confused. Batimi and Belena called Kaidan, joyfully shouting that they had finally succeeded. They carried the animal's body on a stick, saying that Mrs. Astress had finally caught her prey and that she had tried very hard. But the woman's expression changed as she heard her name from Zidane, and she looked up, not expecting to see him. The demon lord said in surprise that she was indeed here, and the woman looked at him in confusion. She asked how he was able to find her, and the man replied that her subordinates had left a code. Batimi and Belena looked at this scene with joy, and Astress wondered why he came. The demon lord replied that it was to visit her. The subordinates looked at them with anticipation, and Kaidan did not understand the atmosphere. Astress said that she had failed a mission, and therefore was no longer one of the four kings, so was now of no use to him. She added that Zidane had always cared for her very much, but she did not want to be criticized later. The demon lord said excitedly that he did not care because she was very important to him. The woman was embarrassed by these words. Plotty was shocked, and Vale said that she was irritated by this drama. After a while, they entered the house. Kaidan made hot tea for everyone. Zidane apologized for causing them trouble with his presence, and then he introduced himself as the supreme ruler of all demons, Zidane. Kaidan asked if that meant he was the leader of the demon country. The man nodded. The hero asked if there would be any problems because he left the country. Zidane said no. And then he explained that the main duty of the demon lord is to protect the country from humans. This mission was given to him by the previous lord, and to fulfill it, he fights on the battlefield day after day. Kaidan replied that he understood, and Plotty said that when you fight so much, there probably is no one waiting for you at home. Zidane replied that this is why he is happy that he has Astress, because she is always responsive, very capable, and simply irreplaceable. The woman was very embarrassed and said that she did not deserve such praise. Her subordinates were glad to see this. Kaidan said that he would never banish Astress. Zidane agreed. He said that Astress was summoned to a military court and sentenced to banishment precisely when he was commanding on the front lines. They did not ask the overlord, they did everything their own way. Zidane said that Astress was blamed for the accidental appearance of a dragon that had caused chaos on the battlefield. Vale hummed a song indifferently, and Kaidan listened, lost and silent. The man said that when he finally returned, Astress was gone. Kaidan concluded that he had come here looking for her. Zidane took Astress's hand and said that he was very glad that she was there, because he did not know what he would do without her. He said that he thought he had lost her forever. Plotty replied that everything was clear with them and their love was clearly visible. The woman became embarrassed and said that they were just childhood friends. And she added that, besides, nothing would work out for them because the ruler must take care of the whole country, and it was not worthy of his care. Grinzelvale was seething during this whole conversation and, unable to bear it, ordered them to be silent. Then she shouted that it didn't matter whether he was the master or whoever he was, he could take Astress and leave. Zidane asked who she was, and Astress was very scared. The woman explained that it was Grinzelvale, the dragon that had flown onto the battlefield. She looked at the demons with disdain. Zidane said in confusion that this couldn't be, looking at the girl in front of him. Vale said angrily that she had been asked to return Astress, and she didn't like having to strain her wings for a rude girl who showed up on her master's doorstep. Kaidan called out to Vale with displeasure, and she said that she understood and would remain silent. Zidane looked at them in confusion. He then turned to Kaidan and said that Astress was living with such a dangerous company, and her life belonged to them. However, the demon lord expressed his desire to return the woman at any cost, clenching his hand into a fist. After which he stood up and confidently said that for this reason he was asking to be allowed to fight him. Kaidan was very surprised. The man said that he took his title seriously and therefore had to show his fighting spirit. The hero began to deny it, and Plotty told him that he might not even dream about it. Then she told him that her husband was the master of Vale, one of the world's disasters, and that there was also an undead king here. She asked him if he had heard of such a thing, and then said that he could not win. Zidane asked if it was true, and Astress confirmed it. Kaidan said that it was not as he thought, and the woman belonged only to herself, so she could go with Zidane. The hero said that she came to him when she wanted to find a purpose in life and understand her capabilities. However, since there is someone who is very concerned about her and wants her to come back, it would be better to pay attention to him. The guy asked her about her decision, adding that Zidane had told her about his feelings, so she should try too. The woman was flattered by these words, her subordinates were happy, and Vale was also happy, realizing that she could leave. Astress squeezed his hand and said that she wanted to always follow him, be it the battlefield or the afterlife. She asked to be allowed to be near. Zidane agreed and suggested that she return home and never leave him again. The woman was happy about this. Her subordinates were happy that their mistress was no longer a loser without a title. Vale was happy, and Kaidan shed a tear seeing this. Then Plotty angrily told them to stop, standing up from the couch. Everyone looked at her with confusion. Kaidan asked what was wrong, and the girl explained that with all due respect to the demon lord, he was very naive. Woodlouse is more intelligent, and addressed the man as if he were her future husband. Zidane asked who she was, and Plotty introduced herself as the princess of the mermaids. And then she said that the demon nobles wanted to arrange a political marriage between her and Zidane. The demon lord was shocked. He stood up and asked who said that, because this was the first time he heard about it. The man then sat down next to Astress and said that there was nothing between him and Plotty. Kaidan nodded in understanding, and he explained that whoever marries the mermaid princess will also receive the mermaid resources. Plotty nodded in agreement. And then she quoted the words of the demon nobles, who said that the mermaids should unite with them and they would marry the princess to their king. Astress' subordinates were surprised by this policy. Plotty said that if you think about it, the demon lord didn't know about his marriage or the expulsion of his most loyal supporter, and that means that one of his subordinates is plotting against the demon lord. All the demons immediately thought that it could only be Reverian. Plotty said that when she became Kaidan's wife, he sent Astress after her, and when she failed the mission, Reverian got rid of Astress and thus strengthened his power. Zidane thought about it and realized that until he dealt with him, returning Astress would be pointless because everyone would remind him of her failure. Plotty said that, at best, he would lose his supporters, and at worst, he would be forced to abdicate the throne. Kaidan was shocked by this, but Vale didn't care. Then the hero said that he was very sorry because the man was very sincere and honest, and the very thought that some scoundrel would rule the land of demons was hateful to him. Zidane and Astress were shocked by these words from the hero, and Plotty said that, in fact, all the problems could be solved at once. She called out to the demon lord and Astress and said that they should return not as a lord and a subordinate, but as husband and wife. The girl suggested that they get married right then and there, The demons were shocked and confused by this proposal. Bottomy and Belena were very happy that the Demon Lord and Lady Astress were getting married, not believing it. Zidane said that it was very unexpected for him. He was not sure about it either. Dissatisfied, Plotty asked him what he was not happy with. Astress, blushing with embarrassment, said no way. Plotty said there was no need to react like that, and she explained that if a woman became queen, it would be the worst possible outcome for the conspirators who wanted her downfall. She also added that if any of the demons wanted to become as close to power as possible, then marrying off their daughter or sister to the Lord would be the surest way. Kaidan nodded understandingly, and he said that if Zidane and Astress were married, the conspirators would be left with nothing. Plotty confirmed. And then she said that that was what they had decided. The embarrassed Astress, who had not said a word, wanted to object. But Plotty looked at her angrily, and the woman explained that if they got married, what would she have to do? The girl smiled and said that it was a good question. She replied that to get married, you need to exchange vows before God. Zidane and Astress took each other's hands and thought about the vow before God. The demon's subordinates were happy, and Kaidan asked for details. Plotty said she would explain now and excitedly told them that they had to take the vows in the presence of God, and then no one would be able to challenge their marriage. Kaidan thought and remembered that in his previous world, in order to officially register a marriage, it was necessary to fill out a form at the district office. But he still asked about what exactly needed to be done for this oath. Plotty praised him for the question and said that now they would find out. After some time, the Undead King appeared and asked why he was summoned. Zidane was shocked that an immortal king had come. He also said that the rumors that the saint had 2 world disasters under his thumb were true. Vale was indignant that he had been told this many times before. Zidane glanced at the yawning Vale and said that the child was a dragon. Astress confirmed. Kaidan asked Plotty why she had called the Undead King. The girl smiled and said that he would witness their wedding. Zidane and Astress were shocked by this news. Plotty explained that the Undead King had once been a high priest, so through him the god would watch as they exchanged vows. Kaidan remembered the marriage ceremony in his world. Plotty excitedly asked the Undead King what he thought about this, and he replied that Zidane and Astress were from the demon race, and although he had become undead, he had previously served the human race. The girl shuddered and fell to her knees, saying that she had made a mistake. Kaidan did not understand the girl's reaction and asked what was wrong. Plotty explained that each race worships different gods. For humans, it's Zeus; for mermaids, Poseidon; for demons, Hades. In other words, each race believes in its own god. Kaidan realized what the girl was getting at and thought it was like calling a monk to church. The girl screamed about what she had done. However, the Undead King said he would try. Plotty asked in surprise if he could. The immortal king said that over the course of more than 1,000 years, he had accumulated a lot of knowledge, and, although religions differ, he was able to pray. Plotty was very happy with this news. Then she turned to Zidane and Astress and asked if they were okay with it. The woman replied that of course not, and thanked her. The Undead King held out his hand and said that he would begin then, and then he began to cast a spell, asking for prosperity that would bear fruit. Bottomy and Belena looked around in fear, and Kaidan and Vale were wary. The king continued to cast a spell, saying that he was taking them into his depths and sharing the blessing of the Mother Goddess, so let this place become a sanctuary. He asked that it be cleansed in any way that was desired. The roar around grew louder, and the Undead King shouted, raising his hand up. A huge magical seal appeared in the sky and lightning struck. Astress and Zidane looked around, and Kaidan asked what was going on. Plotty told him that it was the prayer of the Undead King, and added that the air felt like it was pressing. Then they noticed something appearing behind the huge air currents and looked in one direction. In the center of the magic seal, a huge man appeared in the sky with a staff in his hands, wearing a cloak and a crown. Astress immediately recognized that this was the god of the underworld, Hades. Kaidan screamed in shock at this information. The Undead King didn't expect this, and calmly said that he had overdone it and had summoned the god himself. Plotty was amazed at how someone could do such a thing. He explained that he was going to create a holy ground to hold a ceremony, so it was strange that a god would appear. Plotty shouted that it didn't matter anymore and asked what they should do. At this point, Hades spoke up about how no one had called him for years and asked why he was there, immediately assuming that the children of Zeus had started the last war. Bottomy and Belena were incredibly scared. Zidane knelt down and said that was not true. He explained that the war was being waged with varying success. Although the demons should not relax their vigilance, Hades had nothing to worry about. The god of the underworld asked why he had been summoned then. Zidane apologized and introduced himself as a demon lord. Kaidan was surprised that he was talking to a god. The man continued his explanation, bowing his head and saying that he wanted to marry the lady of his heart. So they decided to hold a wedding ceremony and prayed to receive the blessing of the god of the underworld. However, they mistakenly called upon him personally. The king of the undead also apologized. Zidane asked to accept their sincere apologies for disturbing his peace. Hades learned that he had been summoned by the immortal king and said that then there was nothing surprising about it. After this, he agreed and said that in order to receive his blessing, Zidane must not have any other wives. He asked the Lord, who was bowing before him, if he vowed to love only one woman for the rest of his life. Zidane replied that this was his wish, and then swore that he, the Lord of Demons, would marry only Astress and live with her for the rest of his life. Hades replied that it was well said, then extended his hand and spoke of bestowing his blessing. After a while, the weather returned to normal, and the god of the underworld disappeared. Zidane rose from his knee and took Astra's hand. Kaidan thought that the god Hades was not bad. Vale was not happy that he was so loud that her ears hurt. The king of the undead agreed and said that next time he would be more careful with his prayers. Joyful Plotty ran up to the demons and said that it was very great that they had received a direct blessing from God, because this was the strongest patronage of heaven. The king of the undead wished for good health, easy childbirth and fertility, and divine punishment would descend upon those who tried to separate them. Itonami and Belena were glad that they had succeeded, and Zidane replied that for the demons this was the best proof of his love for Astress. Kaidan thought about the fact that an oath before God would really be cooler than a marriage registration. The demon lord turned to Kaidan and Plotty and said that he was greatly in their debt, because thanks to them, his dream of marrying Astress, which he had almost given up, had come true. Astress, with tears of happiness in her eyes, also said that she would never forget their kindness. Kaidan waved his hands, saying that he did nothing, but he was really happy for the woman. Astress was flattered by these words. Zidane asked if they would return right then and there to announce to everyone at home that she was now their queen. The woman refused Zidane, saying that she would stay here for a little while longer. Zidane and Kaidan were surprised by this decision. Grinzel Vale was very unhappy and told the woman to leave. She said that since they were already married, they should go to their own country. Kaidan called out to the girl to stop. And then he asked Astress why she really wanted to stay. Zidane also looked at her in confusion. The woman replied that she had changed and learned a lot under Kaidan's guidance, so she wanted to continue learning. She added that she wanted this in order to become a worthy wife, turning to Zidane. The man was shocked, but said that it seemed the woman had her reasons. Then he turned to Kaidan and said that he also had a request for him, that he look after Astress a little longer. Itonami and Belena looked at them worriedly. Kaidan replied that he didn't mind, shocking Vale, who wanted to send them away as soon as possible so as not to share food. And then the hero added that he simply didn't even know how he could help, especially since they had just gotten married and he felt awkward separating them. Zidane also asked if they would mind if he stayed here for a while as well. Astress was surprised by these words, and Kaidan was confused. He asked if there would be any harm in it. Plotty and Weil were also confused. Kaidan asked if it would be troublesome for the demon people. The demon lord replied that if it was only for a short time, then no. And he explained this by saying that because of the dragon, both camps had fallen into chaos, so while information was being collected, the troops would not move. Kaidan shouted that he understood, and Vale was angry that she was the one to blame. Zidane asked if Kaidan minded, and Kaidan said of course not, they could make themselves at home. And then he thought about how they would need to build a house for themselves too. She asked if they were all right in the head. She reminded them that there was a conspirator in their ranks, and if so, they would just leave him. Vale meant that if they were not there, he could continue his plotting, and asked if they really wanted to do that. Astra's subordinates, Plotty and Kaidan, thought about it. But Zidane smiled confidently and said that there was no need to worry about that because he had already taken care of it. He laughed evilly, and Kaidan exclaimed in admiration that this was to be expected from the demon lord. Vale was not pleased. She pointed at Zidane and said that he himself was strange because there was no ship, and asked how he got here. Plotty and Kaidan were also curious. The man explained that with the help of teleportation magic, if there are coordinates, you can move in the blink of an eye. Kaidan happily exclaimed that it was very convenient. Zidane then turned to Astress' subordinate Belena, who shuddered at this, and told her that she was, after all, one of the few spatial demons. Before coming here, she left a note with coordinates, which the demon lord was able to teleport to. Batimi hugged Belena and said she was doing well, embarrassing the girl. She replied that she felt uneasy about the fact that they would have to break up because of some conspiracy. The demon lord thanked Belena for helping them out, and Vale thought angrily that she would never forgive her. Plotty intervened in the conversation and said that although she did not want to doubt, there were other spatial magics. The girl asked if they would come here. Zidane told her that she could not worry, because the coordinates of this place are encrypted. If whoever set them up doesn't tell them the key to decrypt them, they're useless. The demon lord also added that this place was inaccessible to other people's perception. Kaidan and Weil looked at him in surprise. And Zidane explained that at the moment the demon race uses the magic of space and clairvoyance, and, with the help of both, the magicians can see a place far from themselves. However, this entire place is surrounded by protection that nullifies such magic. The heroes were surprised by this information. Zidane said that he had taken a big risk using teleportation, but thanks to Beline, he was able to follow here. Batimi gestured to her that she was doing well. The demon lord concluded that they would not be able to come to this place, nor even understand where it was. Kaidan replied that he understood. However, the boy asked who cast such a useful spell. Vale puffed out her cheeks after him. The Undead King replied that such magic was within the power of a dragon, if he was not mistaken. They looked at Vale. The human-shaped dragon sighed and said that she had been exposed, and then confirmed her involvement. She said that after abandoning Astress on the battlefield, she returned and surrounded the entire place with a barrier. Vale was still very angry that if it weren't for Astress, she would have eaten more. Belena was afraid of this. Kaidan looked at Vale and, kneeling in front of her, said that she was very worried about him, for which he was very grateful. The dragon said that it was obvious, because she was the only one who had to gobble up all the master's dishes. But the freeloaders kept coming, and at this rate she would have nothing left at all. Plotty and Astress' subordinates were taken aback by such words. Belen said that it was because she hated them because of the food. Batimi and Astress nodded. Kaidan put his hand on her hair and stroked it, saying that she was good and always protected him. She liked it and confirmed it with a smile. Kaidan excitedly shouted that today they would hold a celebration in honor of Astress and Zidane's wedding, as well as to reward Vale for her efforts. The Undead King excitedly asked if he could join in. Kaidan agreed with a smile. Zidane and Astress thanked him. After some time, they set a table outside with a huge amount of food. Kaidan said that he congratulated the demon lord and Astress on their wedding. Zidane was trying the dishes for the first time, so Astress looked at him with excitement, and Batimi and Belena were happy. The demon lord was surprised by the taste, saying that it was the first time he tried such a delicious dish. Kaidan replied that he was very glad that he liked it. The guy then brought Vale a huge plate of meat, which she was very happy about, 2 spoons in her hands. And then, having tasted it, she opened her eyes and turned into a dragon, shouting at the top of her voice with fire breath about how delicious the food was. Kaidan reprimanded her not to turn at the table and not to breathe fire. She changed back to human form and justified herself by saying that she had never eaten such delicious meat before. Zidane was amazed that she was indeed a dragon, and Kaidan smiled at this. Then he explained that it was the meat of a Kurosaki deer that Astress had caught for them that day. The woman had not expected that. After which he told that Plotty had skillfully cut up the meat and marinated it in magical spices, and Kaidan concluded that not only he, but others had helped prepare this dish. Vale was amazed by this, and then she began to laugh maliciously, saying that it couldn't be any other way, because all these lower creatures had to serve her master and her. Plotty said angrily that she would hit her now, and Astress replied that she was glad to try. Kaidan chuckled and said that even with that attitude, Vale had done a lot for them. Plotty noted that she still had a lot of work to do on her character. After which, the girl tasted the meat and said that Vale was right after all that her husband's dishes should remain a secret. Zidane agreed and noted that such delicacies are not even seen in palaces. And then he nodded, saying that he now understood why the dragon wanted to hide this place. Astress thought about something anxiously. Plotty asked Kaidan when he learned to cook so deliciously. The guy was surprised and said that he lived alone and had to survive somehow, but he did not do anything out of the ordinary. He also said that thanks to the skill he was given, he was able to recreate ingredients and cuisine that were foreign to this world. He thinks that the skill helps him cook even better. The guy then handed the plate to the Undead King and said that whatever it was, he was glad they liked it. At that moment, Astress approached him and asked if his dishes were a state secret. Vale replied that it was a state secret, and Kaiden denied that it was not a secret at all. Then the woman knelt down and turned to the boy. He was surprised and asked what had happened. Astress said that she wanted to ask him again. She asked him to take her into service and teach her what a good wife should be able to do. Kaiden and the others were very surprised by these words. Plotty got angry and asked furiously why Astress was asking someone else's husband about this. The woman apologized and Vale chuckled, saying that this was something she couldn't do. Plotty got angry and then frowned, saying that she couldn't do anything except swing her hand chops. Kaiden reassured her, saying that she was very good at other things too. He remarked that it was actually because of her that he grew crops and cooked delicious dishes. Plotty was very happy to hear this and looked at him lovingly. Kaiden then turned and addressed the demon queen Astress. He said that it would be better if someone like Koku looked after her. The woman refused and said that she had to overcome all the difficulties herself as an obedient wife of the demon lord. Batemi and Belena were proud of their mistress. Kaiden smiled and remarked on how sincere she was, and Zidane thought about something and then turned to Kaiden. He asked him if he could let him train too. Kaiden was surprised and asked what he meant. The guy asked him if he wanted to take the wedding training too. Zidane agreed and noted that it was a very interesting place. Not only the kitchen, but also the harvest for their own buildings. Everything here is fascinating in his opinion. So he says he understands why Astress wants to study here. In addition, he wants to reciprocate the woman's desire to support her, as her husband does. He also shares his thoughts on how a married couple should support each other, just like Kaiden does. The guy was flattered to hear such words addressed to him, and Plotty noted that this was to be expected, because he was different from other kings who simply sat beautifully in their castles. Zidane repeated once more that he was counting on St. Kaiden. Astress also confirmed these words. Some time passed, and the orcs and goblins were building a new building. Zidane was working with them, and he asked Kaiden how he was doing. The guy replied that he was doing great, and he said that he was so good with his hands, so he appreciated it. At that moment, Astress called out to the man. She came in an apron and mittens, bringing a pot of food, saying that it was ready. Zidane blushed deeply from this. Astress asked him in surprise why he reacted like that, and he answered that nothing special, thinking that he was in heaven. The hero sat down at the table outside again, covered with a huge amount of food. Kaiden talked about how delicious the food tasted. Vale supported him by eating quickly, and Plotty praised Astress. She noticed that the Demon King was crying from the taste. He asked what the dish was called, and Astress said it was nikujaba. Kaiden noted that Astress made most of it herself. Zidane couldn't believe it. The guy explained that since she was a swordsman, she was already accustomed to handling a kitchen knife. All that was left for her was to learn the process and the various features of the ingredients and seasonings. Otherwise, she could go. Batemi and Belena supported her, and the woman thanked them, after which she thought about what else was needed for the engagement. Batemi replied that of course it was clothes. She said that they had to learn how to sew. Then she looked at the Demon King and said that, come to think of it, he was wearing a normal shirt. Zidane replied that he got it from St. Kaiden. Batemi was surprised that Kaiden did this, but he agreed and explained that since he was a guy, he could make clothes for other guys too. However, he has already promised to make clothes for Plotty, but he simply cannot come up with a design. He also said that he already had some fabric with him and got up from the table, asking to wait a little. Kaiden brought 3 rolls and said that this was all he had. Batemi was surprised by it, excitedly saying that she had never seen such beautiful fabric before. The guy explained that he had previously explored a mountain dungeon where he found a caterpillar that spat out threads. So, as an experiment, he tried bringing some of them home, where he built special enclosures for them. Plotty was surprised that he did this. Then Kaiden said that this is how he got the chance to make this fabric from caterpillars. Everyone was speechless with surprise. Batemi, holding the roll of fabric in her hands, could not believe that it was possible to make fabric from caterpillar excrement. Belena, however, noted that his ideas were too unique for this world, as one would expect. After which, Batemi's eyes lit up, and she asked, "So it turns out it's okay to make clothes for girls from fabric made from caterpillars." Kaidan asked her if she could do it, and Astra's subordinate agreed, saying that her parents actually had a fabric store, so she knew all these things. Astress was surprised because she didn't know this, and Belena remarked that it was wonderful. Batimi asked to give it to her, and Kaidan replied that she was his savior. Astress also volunteered to help, because this was also part of her training. Then Batimi said that in that case she wanted to start by making clothes for Miss Plotty. The girl smiled and agreed, curious to see what they could come up with. Batemi took out a rope and said that once everything was settled, she should start by measuring its parameters. She pulled the rope with an evil smile. Plotty did not understand Batemi's expression, and Kaidan thought that he knew it was impossible for him. She also said that she knew they were making clothes for Plotty first, but she would be making clothes for everyone, so she respectfully asked to be allowed to measure them all. Plotty asked about how she wanted them all to take off their clothes, after which she did it with a slight movement of her hand, which made Batemi scream and blush deeply. She asked if Plotty had always gone commando. The girl asked what commando meant. And then she remembered that when she first met her husband, he had the same reaction. Astress pointed out that she really was a mermaid and had no idea that she needed to wear clothes on her lower half. Plotty asked if there was a problem with this, and Batimi replied that there was, surprised by the question. Astress explained that, for them, the demons and the people living here on the surface, exposing their lower half to public view, is considered a crime. Plotty screamed at these words and asked why no one had told her about this. Astress replied that no one had thought that she would walk like that. Then the Mermaid Princess remembered that she sometimes saw her brother putting something on his body. Batemi explained that it was what they called underwear. Plotty said she realized, summing up, that lingerie was formal wear meant for diplomatic address. Batemi thought she still thought it was formal. After which, she enthusiastically asked to provide everything to her, assuring that she would show her why such clothes were wonderful. Plotty replied that she did not quite understand, but was counting on her. The girl started taking measurements, and Batemi asked Plotty about sucking in her stomach, causing Plotty to blush. Plotty replied that she had never been so upset about her husband's food before, and Batemi replied that it was normal. The girl continued to take measurements of the other girls, crying out that Miss Astress's belly was fuller than she had imagined. Belena replied that it was the power of love, and Astress sheepishly ordered her to shut up. Vale wondered what these pests were doing. After some time, the work was finished. Batemi happily shouted that the flounces on her dress were inspired by the sea waves and their blue color, and it suited a mermaid princess like Plotty. Kaidan and Zidan also liked it very much, but Batemi asked the girl if she liked it. Plotty answered that it was very unusual, and she was pleased. Kaidan also thanked her and noted that he was incredibly happy. Batemi was embarrassed by these words. Then Plotty approached him, and he replied that it really suited her. She also said that Batemi had also made underwear for her. Kaidan was embarrassed by this phrase, and Plotty asked if this was also considered unacceptable. The guy agreed. The mermaid princess said that it didn't matter, because it was wonderful when her brother did it. Kaidan thought that next time he would definitely sew clothes for his wife's brother. Vale looked at Plotty's clothes strangely the whole time and lit a fireball in her hand, which she threw at Plotty. The girl screamed loudly, asking what she was doing and looking at the ball. Kaidan also did not understand and asked what was wrong with her, assuming that she was jealous. Vale replied that he should just be silent and watch. The fire flame stopped burning, and the dress was completely undamaged. The mermaid princess looked at this with puzzlement. She started touching it and asking why it wasn't even burnt, because there were no marks. Vale explained that there was a lot of anti-magic embedded in this fabric. The dragon in human form said that she was sure that this also had high defensive power, and she thought that this dress was much better than normal armor. Plotty asked what Batimi had done to him, but Batimi, confused, replied that she had done absolutely nothing. Belena said that if that was true, she was very interested in the reason. Plotty suggested that the caterpillar had such an ability. Vale asked Kaidan if he did anything with the caterpillar, and the boy replied that he simply treated them very carefully, while at the same time hoping to make good clothes out of them for Plotty. Vale replied that she was sure that was the case, and then explained that the orcs and goblins had changed after meeting Kaidan, and that the same thing had probably happened to this caterpillar. The boy said he understood, and Vale expressed surprise that this was the birth of another legendary armor. Batemi countered that it was not armor, but fashion. Vale turned to Batimi and told her to hurry up and make the same armor for her. The girl still objected that it was not armor. However, Kidan was grateful for such durable clothing. He noted that since the Demon King's clothes were originally cotton ones meant for futons, they might also ask Baitemi to remake them for them. Zidan noted that this was another one of those daily surprises. At that moment, Astress looked at him, which caught his attention. She said his clothes were a little torn and said he must have gotten caught on something while he was working. He saw a small cut on the side and said he couldn't believe he had made a hole in the shirt Kaidan had given him. Astress said she would fix it, then became embarrassed and said she had only recently learned it, so she wasn't very good at it yet. The Demon Lord looked and thanked her, saying he would leave it up to her then. Everyone watched as Zidan took off his shirt and Astress sewed up the hole in it. Kaidan thought that it would be okay if the Demon King kept the shirt for a little while longer. All the action took place in the human kingdom. Some voice says that it hates the dragon. It was the voice of the king. He, sipping a drink from a glass, reflects that because of this dragon, the war has reached a dead end. The advisor says that, according to the generals at the front, the reason for the dragon's appearance is still unknown. Therefore, the army was advised not to move. The king is outraged by the cowardice of the army and the generals. He then asks for information about the master that the dragon obeys. According to him, this person is called Saint Kidden. The advisor says that there is no information on this matter. His Majesty, sipping his drink from a glass, says that all these people are useless. The advisor offers his sincere apologies. Then His Majesty throws the glass on the floor. The advisor sees all these actions. His Majesty orders the advisor to bring another glass of freshly squeezed fish juice. The advisor immediately agrees with His Majesty. The advisor cannot understand how His Majesty can drink this nasty stuff. His Majesty says that this situation is simply terrible. He sighs and thinks that they could have won the war that had been going on for centuries. His Majesty Junsis XVIII must put an end to this war between the human and demon races. To win, he used all the power of the Mana Country to summon heroes from a parallel world. His Majesty thinks that if they can defeat the demon race, then they can use their power for their own purposes and for the country, and that will be enough. At this moment, the advisor brings fish juice to His Majesty. First, they need to deal with the dragon. That's what His Majesty thinks. Then he asks the advisor if he really thinks the dragon's master exists. The advisor says that many people doubt this issue too. The advisor says that if they make a wrong move, they will simply provoke him. If the dragon ever appears again, destruction will be inevitable. Sipping his juice, the king did not even think about the words of the advisor. Suddenly, the thought of destruction reaches him. He immediately came to his senses after such words. His Majesty abruptly places the glass on his throne, causing its juice to splash in all directions. He forces the advisor to find Saint Kidden. If he becomes one of their subjects, they will definitely be able to win. The advisor says that this may indeed be true. But how can he find this person? His Majesty says that the advisor should create a search party, which consists of capable heroes. The advisor says that there are rumors that a civil war is currently going on in the demon capital. His Majesty becomes even more angry and says that he does not care. His Majesty says that he will temporarily disband the army. He orders that all the country's resources be dedicated to Saint Kidden. The advisor immediately agrees with His Majesty. His Majesty says that he will definitely find Saint Kidden, and that is when humanity will declare its victory. At that moment, in another place and another time, there was a house. It was made in the classical Japanese style. In the house, someone was pouring a drink into a cup. They were a man and a woman who were enjoying a pleasant time. The man says that 2 months have passed since they arrived at this place. The girl says that they could learn a lot. The man takes a few sips of the drink and then sighs sullenly. To begin with, the man suggests to the girl that they get the feeling of the sword again. He takes out the sword and looks at it excitedly. The girl asks the man, who is the Demon King, about his concerns. The Demon King turns to the girl, whose name is Astress, and says that the holy sword Ainloth is agitated. The Demon King says that the sword seems to resonate with someone. Astress falls silent for a while, but after a while she remembers something. After a while, they head to a place where they try to find the Holy Lord Kadan. In response, he shouts to them that he is here. He then asks the Demon King about his concern. The Demon King addresses the Holy Lord, who holds a sword in his hands. The Demon King asks about the thing in Kaidan's hands. Kaidan says that this is a very useful sword, and it can cut through anything. He just used it to cut mana metal. Plotty says that it is the sacred sword that they picked up from the dungeon of the Undead King of the Teacher. She says that the sword is being mishandled. The Demon King never thought that the Holy Lord of the Swindler would have the legendary devil sword, Dreishvars. Norio says that he was going to return it to his teacher, but the sword simply would not leave him. The Flesh Princess turns to Norio, saying that it was he who protected her from the Undead King. Norio says that at that moment there was no other choice, and that it was because he did not understand the power given to him by the gods. The Demon King and the girl standing next to him are surprised by Norio's words. The Demon King says that according to the legend he knows, the power of a saint granted by the gods can even result in the power of a hero. Norio recalls that the Undead King's teacher also spoke of something similar. The Demon King turns to Lord Saint Norio and assumes that he may be one of the heroes summoned by humanity from the parallel world. Norio thinks and tells the Demon King that there is some truth in his words. The Demon King doubts his words. Norio, a little excited, says that as the whole team had already guessed, he really came from a parallel world. Nore says that he has no fighting skills, so he was kicked out of the war by the Demon King, surprised by Norio's words. That is why Norio began his nomadic life on this land, far from the human race. The Demon King cannot believe it. The girl turns to Zero, asking him that it was supposed to be difficult. Norio says that it is not. He kneels down and takes a handful of earth. Clenching his hand into a fist, he shows an example of how he uses his power. He can grow a small flower from an ordinary handful of soil. The Demon King is surprised to see this bud sprout. Noria says that it is a gift that the gods have given him, perfect for a peaceful lifestyle. The Demon King understood everything and said that it may be a miraculous power, but it is not suitable for battle. However, in order to be stronger than the Undead King, Noria must do something. Suddenly, Noria says that he can use the power that was given to him for other purposes. For example, he can reveal the potential of anything that he touches. The Demon King and Astress are surprised by the maximum power of Dreishwards' Devil Ball. Norio says that it doesn't mean anything that he is the strongest because of his power. The Demon King says in a slightly shaky voice that there is not a single being in this world that could possess Norio's power. He ponders the power that the gods of the human race have bestowed upon Norio. The Demon King continues to ponder and asks Norio if he wishes to prove his superiority over the human race and return to his kingdom. To all this, Nori says that he is not going to do this. Perhaps it would be rude on his part towards the Demon King who is waging war against the human race, but Norio is not connected to any of them. Noria says that he does not belong to anyone, so he can marry Princess Plotty. Princess Plotty shyly turns to her husband. The Demon King also turns to the Holy Lord Norio. He says that the Light Lord is right, and if he were not here, they would become more and more serious with the mermaid race, which is also participating in their war. The Demon King turns to Saint Kaiden Norio and believes that his existence is of great importance to this world. He then proposes to drink to hope and for everything to go smoothly. Saint Lord Kidan Norio looks at the Demon King with surprise and excitement at the same time. They shake hands, to which Norio then confirms the Demon King's words. After some time, the Demon King and the girl named Astress return to the Lord Saint. The Demon King says that they punished those who were having fun while they were away. The Demon King says that they need to purge the traitors a little more and thereby gain sympathy throughout the nation. Norio is delighted with the Demon King's actions. Norio says in admiration that they really planned everything well. He thought they were just enjoying their honeymoon. Vale asks the two girls standing behind why those two never ride with the Demon King. The girls are a little embarrassed by his worried question and say that while they are here, the Demon King can return here whenever he wants. Vale instantly transforms into a dragon and says that the Migam will take these girls to the land of demons. Norio tries to calm Vale down. The sea invites the Demon King to come to him to replenish his food supplies. One of the girls introduces herself as Belena and says that she will take care to fulfill her role, namely to connect the king with this land. The Demon King and Astress thank Belena for her help. The Demon King is interested in another girl named Batimi. She says that she will stay here because she is Belena's friend. Batima asks permission from the Demon King and says that she would like to stay here and continue making clothes. For Norio, this would be a great option. Then Batima, with a somewhat embarrassed but at the same time thoughtful face, approaches Ms. Astress. Astress does not understand anything. Suddenly, she finds herself wearing a gorgeous and beautiful dress. Batima says that it was she who sewed the dress for the one and only Miss Astress, with whom the Demon King fell in love. The girl was a little saddened by happiness, and then thanked Batami. The Demon King offers Astress to move forward, to which she immediately agrees. A magic circle appears behind the Demon King and Astress. They then say goodbye to all their friends and promise to meet them again. The whole company wishes them luck. After some time, a portal appears, into which the Demon King and Astress jump. The Demon King turns to Astress and says that long ago he always thought that he could never resolve this war peacefully between the demon and human races. Astress is a little confused by the words spoken by the Demon King. He continues to say that the existence of the Lord Saint made him realize that what he had given up was not just a dream. Astress approaches the Demon King. The Demon King approaches Astress, asking her to lend him the power for his dream. Astress agrees without hesitation. This conversation took place long before the Demon King returned to his country. Noria approached someone and asked him to compete with him. This person was the Demon King, who thought about this proposal for a long time. The Demon King would really like to have that experience. He would like to know how strong Kitten is. Even saying that, Noria isn't very good at handling the ball, so they need something simple. Suddenly, the arena appears on the ground. Norio suggests playing sumo. The Demon King asks Norio again. Norio explains that sumo is a game in which two people stand facing each other. He continues to explain the rules, saying that the two people must be inside the circle. The Demon King immediately gets the idea and says that they will fight until someone can't move. Noria denies his words. Noria comes closer to the Demon King and grabs him, saying that he should try to hold his opponent in a similar manner. Norio says that the Demon King cannot hit his opponent. He must try to pull him outside the circle. All types of strikes are prohibited. The king understood everything and said that it looked simple, to which Noria confirmed his words. The Demon King immediately took a stance and offered Norio to fight him. He agreed, but only once, to which the king responded with consent. They stand on opposite sides of the circle and begin their battle. Sharply and without delay, they collide with each other. Norio tries to push the Demon King out of the circle, but he is still in the circle. Suddenly, Norio remembers something. He remembers that he knows many techniques in sumo. Then he tries one technique on the Demon King. He, in turn, did not expect such a turn of events and falls to the ground from such a technique. The Demon King did not understand what had happened. Norio began to apologize and said that it was unexpected. The Demon King asks the saint to leave this fight again. The Lord Saint agrees with his words and at that moment calls Okubo. At that moment, a voice asks for help. It was the Mermaid Prince. He turns to Kidan and does not understand what is happening here. The Demon King does not understand anything and is surprised by the presence of the Mermaid Prince. The Mermaid Prince is confused by the fact that the Demon King is here. Norio asks the Mermaid Princess to calm down and offers him an idea. The Demon King and the Mermaid Prince engage in a sumo fight. Norio plays the role of referee in the arena. Norio tells the two opponents that they are still in the ring, and the two opponents continue to fight. Suddenly, an ogre named Okubo calls out to Nore. Norio asks the district to gather more guys. Many beast people begin to fight in the ring one by one. All of them are still in the ring and cannot push each other out of the limits. All the guys in the company thought this fight was fun. They were satisfied with their needs. After some time from that day, sumo became popular among all these guys. In the end, after protracted battles, Prince Arowana became the champion. Norio could not even imagine that mermaids could stand on their feet so well. After some time, a voice in Norio's house announces that the bread is ready. A girl bites into it with a crunch. It was the princess of the dress. She was delighted with the softness of the beautiful bread. Vale is also crazy about this beautiful bread. The girls also admire the taste of bread, saying that food is the same in all worlds, but the taste and texture are different. The princess asks her husband what exactly this food is that he calls bread, to which Norio confirms her words. Norio says that it is a staple food in his world, and that wheat flour can be used to make other food. Norio says that this is another addition to his repertoire. Vale appears and asks Norio to hurry up and make more of them for her. But before all this, the Lord Saint says that he would like to prepare one more thing, namely a real food product from his world. That is the harvest of which he would like to grow next. This product is rice. All the girls stand in shock and do not understand what kind of rice is being discussed. Vale begins to wonder about the taste of this rice. The Lord Saint says that these are slightly sweet white grains. They are similar to wheat, but completely different. The princess is a little shocked by her husband's words. Norio says that rice is produced in the same way as wheat. The flesh princess is absolutely shocked by her husband's words. She turns to her husband and says that they need to make some adjustments. The princess says that at the moment the organ team is responsible for construction projects. All these orcs are doing field work. Who joined them after the demon race escaped is in charge of sewing. Belena controls the roots, and if someone is short of hands, they help others. There is also a stupid dragon in their team. Vale says that she protects this place from invasions and also creates channels in the fields, and she can also move buildings. The princess agrees with her words and says that everyone is busy with their duties. The princess appears and gets furious that didn't they use all that power to prepare the wheat, namely the harvesting of the wheat, grinding, threshing, so it is a labor-intensive process. The girls agree with the princess's words. The princess starts screaming and saying that she is the only one who is doing it, medicine and fermentation of food. Everyone else is shocked by what they heard from the princess. They realize that they made some mistake. The princess begins to list what she does, namely preparing fertilizer for the fields, producing meat and soy sauce in the brewery, and also producing yeast and managing the cold storage room. The princess continues to arise and says that she cannot do all these duties on her own. Her husband falls to his knees and bows his head before her, asking for forgiveness. Tears well up in his eyes because he wanted to do a lot of things and didn't take into account the amount of work they had to do. He says that he's a terrible husband. The princess calms him down and says that there's nothing wrong with it since he understood everything. The wolf says that this is all for the sake of good food and asks the princess to be patient for a little while, to which the princess asks Vale to shut up. And suddenly a voice interrupts the conversation between the princess and Vale. It was the prince of the mermaids named brother-in-law. Noria asks him for forgiveness and says that he is a terrible husband. Brother-in-law does not understand anything and asks the princess to explain, to which he says that after entering into negotiations with the saint, they agreed on selling pickled radishes, so he came to buy them. The princess immediately becomes furious because the brother-in-law was the one who ordered so many radishes. At this point, the brother-in-law tries to calm his sister down. The princess says that their neighbor, the immortal king, loves this radish. Then she asks you and the rest of the team why you like fermented food so much, to which the brother-in-law says that this food is tasty and healthy. Vel says that the bread is also very tasty. The girls confirm her words. They say that there are so many types of fermented food. The girls say that although they are from the demon tribe, they are not strong in pharmaceutical magic. The princess starts to get very angry and says that her work has a terrible influence on people. At this point, her husband just breaks down in tears and asks her for forgiveness. And suddenly, the princess had an idea. The princess says that her brother-in-law arrived at exactly the right time. I came up with a wonderful idea that there are people who can balance her workload and those who specialize in pharmaceutical magic. The princess asks her brother to bring some people from the mermaid kingdom here. The brother-in-law does not understand the meaning of her words, to which the princess says that she will increase the price of pickled radishes. Then the process turns to her dear husband, to which he says that if such a thing is possible, then he is more than for it. After which the Holy Lord turns to his brother-in-law, to which the brother-in-law thinks. The princess begins to beg her brother as even she wants to try the rice from her beloved and dear husband. Norio is a little embarrassed by the words of his dear wife. The brother-in-law thinks about the situation for a bit and says that sending the sea inhabitants will be a bit difficult. Norio asks his brother-in-law again. Sharina turns to the Holy Lord and asks him if the mermaids are afraid of the shore, to which Norio at first thought that they hated him, but the dress suddenly began to appreciate it. It is difficult for Shireen to say one thing, but he nevertheless decides. He says that the princess of the Pei is a real weirdo, and at that moment the brother-in-law's sister, and starting to get angry and arise, she does not understand why her brother-in-law said this so suddenly. Her brother-in-law takes her words into account and says that any normal mermaid considers land a hellish place. The girls also understood everything, because all mermaids are fish. Brother-in-law says that sea inhabitants, as a rule, can live normally on land. In other words, Plotty, who decided to spend her life on land voluntarily, is a rare specimen. Brother-in-law says that, thanks to the flesh medicine, he can move freely between land and water. Princess Plotty feels great from her brother-in-law's words. However, before this, everything was fiction. There were restrictions on the establishment of side effects for land dwellers, including loss of voice or turning into bubbles and dissolution. Vela appears and says that all the mermaids should remain in the water. that the brother-in-law said that this was impossible, and the goods are necessary as a resource for the same diplomacy. Brother-in-law says that until strong medicine appears, most sea creatures will not come out onto land of their own free will. Sharon continues to say that along with the improvement of medicine, a new system must be created, namely the expulsion of criminals. But the sea, along with the others, is surprised by the words of the brother-in-law. Shorin goes on to say that in addition to the most severe punishment, they use exile as an alternative. Without an antidote, they have no choice but to live out their lives on land in the wild world. Lord Saint and everyone else are surprised and shocked by the brother-in-law's words. The brother-in-law says that for the sea dwellers, the shore will always be hell. The princess is easier than her brother to do something about it because he is the prince of the mermaids. Brother-in-law thinks about the flesh assistants. They must have a high level in brewing potion. However, even if they use the royal command to work with people, being on the ground for such a long period of time. The princess fully confirms her brother-in-law's words and offers him the idea of sending the exiled criminals here. Shorin and the rest of the company are stunned by the princess's words. Shurek starts screaming and getting upset because he can't do this because the kingdom of mermaids is in debt to the Holy Lord and they can't use his lands as a prison. Allure Flower says that there is nothing wrong with that. Norio doesn't want to put the board in danger. Shorin says that the Holy Lord, as usual, is not afraid of anything. Most likely it is the criminals who will be in danger. Suddenly, Vale turns into a dragon and says that everything irritates her and that we burn anyone who comes here. Plotty turns to her brother and says that if he still wants to eat pickled radishes, then he will have to bring 3 assistants. The Princess of Flesh doesn't care whether these assistants are criminals or not, but if they are talented, then she is always glad to see them. The Princess of Flesh says that with her actions, she will bring them to heaven. Her husband begins to apologize for driving her into a corner. After some time, Shurin finally brought assistance. In front of Norio stood 3 girls who were half naked. Vale does not understand whether it is normal to have criminals under his command, to which Norio says that this is not normal at all. Clears his throat a little and apologizes for disturbing the Lord Saint. He introduces all these girls again. Don't say that the one on the right is a pufferfish, the one in the center is an anglerfish, and the one on the right is Gararufa. Norio does not understand why the brother-in-law brought the girls. Our brother-in-law says that they are criminals, so he asks Norio to keep a close eye on them. Lord Saint Norio thanks these girls for coming here. He introduces himself as Kadan. He is glad to meet them. Pufferfish remembers the prince's words about this man. The angler doubts the abilities of this landowner and is surprised that she has to work for him. Gararufa simply does not want to do anything. Suddenly, they are interrupted by a voice. It was Princess Plotty, and she asks these girls to get ready. All the girls are surprised by the presence of the princess. They are shocked that she is here. It was the icy cold witch Rafa. The hellfire witch Rafa and the epidemic witch Gararufa looked at the company in surprise. The brother-in-law says that these girls are criminals from today on. They will work in a penal colony under the supervision of his sister, Princess Plotty. Rumpai stutters and wants to say something. She tries to jump into Princess Plotty's arms with a satisfied face. Brother-in-law and Norio look at all this with bewilderment. Rumpai immediately falls to one knee. She hasn't seen Princess Plotty for a long time. Brother-in-law and Norio look at what is happening in surprise. Rumpai can't believe that she'll be serving the princess again, Pei. Tears are welling up in her eyes. She tries to hold them back. For Rumpai, this will all be the height of bliss. She couldn't hold back her tears and burst into tears in front of her. The girl asks the company that this Rumpai is the criminal. The brother-in-law confirms her words. This trio is known for its bad reputation in their country. Rafa smirks and says that Rumpai is only famous for his clinginess to the royal family. Then Rufa interrupts her and says that Rafa is also in love with Prince Arawana, which is why she came without fail. Rafa starts to get indignant, shouting and telling Rufa that she simply chose life outside the sea rather than sit in a cage forever. Rufa thinks about it and responds sarcastically to Rafa's words. Norio realizes that these girls do not get along very well with each other. Rufa doesn't understand what they should do. Rumpai vows to serve the princess. Pay until her body turns to dust. She will gladly destroy humanity using all her power. Pei does not understand who and when asked her about it. Rafa asked them again. She is already ready to help in the destruction of humanity. Plotty says that their idea is cancelled so they can moderate their ardor. Norio asks Shurin what crimes the 3 of them committed. With some bewilderment, Shuren will nevertheless tell the story. He says that in the land of the mermaids, there were 6 magicians who used beastly potions, for which they were called the Crazy 6 Witches. Shuren brought only 3 of them here. Norio and the girl next to him asked Shuren's words again. He says that he will first tell the story of Rafa. This girl can notice the flow of mana at the bottom of the world's oceans, and also, she tried to create a way to artificially control this mana. The girl thinks that there is nothing wrong with this. Shuren adds and says that if Rafa could control mana, she would use all the water sources and destroy all the people and demons. Norio is scared by Shuren's words. Brother-in-law adds that Rafa is not only an extreme radical, but also a master of her craft, which is why she had to be thrown into prison. Norio understands everything that is happening. Then he asks about that girl with glasses. Brother-in-law says that it is Gara Rufa. She is also a terrible criminal. Norio is a little shocked. Rufa originally had a lot of authority as a specialist in the mermaid medical community. Norio admires her a little and says that it's great to be doing things like that. Brother-in-law says that Rufa once put forward a rather strange theory. Suddenly, Rufa herself interrupts him. She is a little disappointed, saying that no one understands the charm of her experiments. Rufa speaks enthusiastically about his theory that some diseases are caused by small, invisible creatures. Brother-in-law does not understand, and will never understand such enthusiasm of Rufa. Norio guessed what invisible creatures Rufa was talking about, namely, she meant microbes. Norio thought for a moment, and remembered that the princess, Plotty, was also very surprised when he told her about yeast and fermentation. Rufa starts screaming and asking to listen to her carefully. She says that the body, having remembered these little creatures, is then able to resist them. Norio notices and says that Rufa means an immune reaction. Rufa continues to talk about his crazy theory that if you collect blood from someone who has survived the disease once and inject it into someone who has had it more, then their body will be able to resist. Norio realized that Rufa was talking about a blood transfusion. Shuren exaggerates a little, saying that if a person's blood is injected into another, he can end his life. Rufa appears and does not understand Shuren's contradiction. For Norio, Rufa's explanations are understandable, since he came from another world. Then Norio asks about that girl who is sitting on her knees in front of the princess. Pay up. Brother-in-law says that this girl is also a problematic element. Shuren says that this girl was originally one of those who served in the king's personal guard. Norio appears and asks Shuren why such a person was put behind bars. Brother-in-law says that it's all about his sister, or more precisely, her unmarried status. He says that when the proposals for a political marriage began pouring in from demons and humans, the mermaids' opinions were generally divided. Shuren says that at one point, one aristocrat from the mermaids from the neutral opposition opposed the very fact of marriage. With this proposal, he addressed directly to Shuren's father, the king of their country. Brother-in-law quotes the words that there is no risk to be taken if the engagement suddenly falls through. As soon as time passes, they themselves will back off. It was a rather unperturbed statement. In-law says that the aristocrat then said something that shouldn't have been said and continues to quote him, that, anyway, the princess doesn't know anything except her medicine. It doesn't matter who she marries, she still won't be able to cope with the role of a wife. Hearing all these words, Rampai fell into a rage and with an angry face beat that aristocrat right there on the spot, leaving not a drop of living space on him. At this point, Shuren's story is interrupted by Rampai, which frightens Shuren at Rampai's sudden appearance. She says that the incident was not her fault. According to her, it was all the fault of this aristocrat who insulted Plotty. The brother-in-law tells Norio that Rampai does not admit her guilt, so she was thrown behind bars to cool her ardor. The brother-in-law asks for forgiveness for bringing these abnormal girls, to which Plotty says that nothing can be done about his actions now. Norio turns to Plotty and asks her if she will be okay. She is embarrassed, happy, and delighted that Norio is worried about her. Her brother-in-law with an unperturbed face says that she will be okay. Plotty angrily confronts Shuren, saying that he shouldn't have been responsible for her. Shuren then wants to tell Mr. Norio one thing. In fact, the princess. Plotty is one of the crazy 6 witches. Norio begins to worry about her, but she does not remember her crimes. Her brother-in-law says that Plotty is the worst of the witches. She caused the emergency with the help of forbidden medicines, and also, no one can object to her because of her attitude towards the royal family. Because of all this, Plotty was nicknamed Crowned Witch. Norio realizes that his wife turned out to be a witch. He thought about this thought, which did not give him peace. brother-in-law leaves all matters to Plotty, saying that only she can pacify one of the six. Plotty asks to rely on her. Plotty was delighted by this event, because now she will have much less work. Brother-in-law, Norio, and the girl look at her admiration with bewilderment and surprise. Ranpai says with admiration that now she will serve the princess again, pay. She says that this place is literally heaven on earth. Rafa thought about Ranpai's words and asks what kind of place this is. Norio says that the owner of this place is a guy named Kaidan. Rafa and Rufa think about it, saying that this place belongs to humans, although they saw a girl with a piece of fabric that looked like a demon. Next, a goblin and an ogre approach Norio, saying that the pizza oven has been built. Norio thanks Okubo and Gabunshin for the work they have done. The witch girls arrive in shock at what is happening. They could not believe that an ogre and a goblin were communicating with Mr. Norio. They made the false assumption that they were in the land of demons. At this point, they are interrupted by Vale, who says that for girls like them, all their thoughts mean nothing. Vale says that their job is to silently help the mermaid to make even more delicious food. The girls look at Vale and do not understand why such a little girl is so protective of them. Vale did not like what they told her. She begins to emit light that fills the entire space. The girls do not understand what is happening. Vale turns into a dragon and says that she is a head taller than these girls. The witch team is frightened by such a large-scale transformation of Vale. They do not understand why the dragon from the two world disasters ended up in this place. Gara Rufa suddenly loses consciousness from shock. Norio tries to calm Vale down by telling her that she won't get any food if she doesn't keep quiet. Vale calms down without hesitation. Norio then announces that they will be having a pizza party today in honor of the three witches' arrival. Vale doesn't know about the existence of pizza, to which Norio explains to her that she will know what pizza is when she tries it. Rafa doesn't understand who this guy is. Plotty says that this guy is her husband. Ranpai and Rafa, hearing Plotty's words, stand in a stupor. They are very surprised and shocked. Then Ranpai loses consciousness and falls to the ground. Suddenly, Rafa heard a voice. At that moment, she turns around and sees a living skeleton in a robe and hat, who thanks them all for inviting them to the party for newcomers. Rafa says with a convulsive voice that this is the Immortal King. She is very shocked that two world disasters have gathered in one place. Following this, Rafa also loses consciousness and falls to the ground. Plotty says that until these girls wake up, they will not start the party. After some time, the ramp opens her eyes. She was lying on a cozy bed. She suddenly jumps up from the bed. Her friends were already waiting for her. There is a quiet silence in the room. The building is decorated in a beautiful wooden style. Ranpai doesn't understand where she is. Rafa says that they are in a strangely built house where it smells very nice and also a very soft bed. Ranpai begins to remember that it seems that Prince Arawana brought them to the surface to work in the penal servitude. Suddenly, one of the maids, namely Belena, unexpectedly enters their room. The girls look at this girl in shock. They understand that this girl is from the demon race. Belena says that St. Keaton has given them a covenant and asked them to go to one place. The girls do not understand what holy throwing is being discussed. Suddenly, Ranpai remembered who they were talking about. After some time, she calls Princess Plotty. The princess looks back at the call of Ranpai, who runs frantically towards her. She falls to her knees before the princess and begins to call the princess poor and unhappy because she was forced to become the wife of a demon on this hellish land. The princess does not understand what hellish land is being talked about. She says that this man is her husband. The mermaid girl asks the princess again. Ranpai says that he will never forgive the man Kadan and will send him to the next world. The rest of the mermaids followed Ranpai. They began to question the princess about the fact that a man controls the land belonging to demons, to which Belena replied that this is not the land of demons. However, it will be difficult for them all to explain what this place is. The princess confirms her words. Rufa asks the princess about this place, to which the princess says that this place is a completely independent territory. She says that this place is the village of St. Kitten. The girls do not understand her words and say that this cannot be, especially since the word village sounds somehow rude. They are wary that people and demons can start a war here. Who says that this war can be quickly calmed down, to which Ramp is frightened by the unexpected presence. Ranpai remembers this girl. The girl introduces herself as the dragon Grinzel Vale. Then the Ramp remembers that she seemed to have seen the Immortal King, to which the Immortal King himself suddenly appears around this girl. The mermaid girls are frightened by the unexpected appearance of the Immortal King. They cannot believe it, because perhaps because of him they will go to the next world. Belena says that she was also surprised by all this at first. She confirms that in fact these two are protecting this place, namely the Immortal King and the Dragon Veil. Rumpai can't believe it, but at the same time understands that this land is not inferior to any country in the world. The princess asks the mermaid girls to live here without fear. Veil adds that these girls should not only live, but also work. Veil says that today these pathetic fishtails will work with the mermaid to feed her, to which the princess says that this is not all for her sake. Rafa guesses that they were brought here as cooks. Rumpai rolls away in tears, turning to the princess and saying that she was really lowered so low. The princess asks her words again. Then the princess says that before dinner she will take them to the place where they will work. She asks Henbane to inform her husband about this, to which Henbane agrees with her words and says that she will definitely convey it. Rafa can't believe that they will actually work on cooking. Rufa wanted to do some research. Ronpai wants to come up with a plan to escape from here with the princess. After a while, they arrive at the place. The princess opens the doors and tells the girls that this is their workplace. The mermaid girls are shocked by what they see. They smelled a very strange odor, but, strangely enough, it did not feel disgusting. The princess says that this is where she makes spices and ingredients for food. The mermaid girls saw some liquid, to which the princess said that this dark liquid was soy sauce. Scooping some of this sauce into a cup, she asked the mermaid girls to try it. The girls are surprised by the origin of this soy sauce. The princess says that this soy sauce is somewhat similar to the medicine that is added to food for flavor. The girls slowly and alternately dip their fingers into the soy sauce. They slowly bring them to their lips. Then they taste the soy sauce. They immediately serve it to shock. The girls are incredibly delighted with the taste of soy sauce, because this sauce has a perfectly selected composition, and this sauce also contains several flavors. The princess confirms their words. Ronpai says that the princess has created an amazing medicine. The princess, perplexed, says that she did not invent it. The princess says that her husband told her about this. Some of the ingredients contain tiny organisms and microbes that make this product. Rufa immediately became interested in the princess's words. She says that she does not understand the meaning of my words, but you already feel that this is something incredible. The princess says that they were just doing similar research, to which Rufa confirms her words. Rufa, holding a bowl of soy sauce in her hands, reflects on the fact that it is in it that the tiny creatures she imagined live. The princess fully confirms her words. Rufa burst into tears of happiness. After all her research assumptions were correct. She is truly glad that this sauce is a product of microorganism fermentation. Out of happiness, Rufa tries to drink the soy sauce at once, to which the princess tries to stop her, saying that she will go to the next world if she drinks it all at once. Change play 2-4, to which she tells her story of when she first tried to taste soy sauce, to which her husband stopped her. Rafa is a little offended that her research will already be used by some person. She is offended, but at the same time happy and wants to learn more about these microorganisms. The princess is counting on Rufa. The other girls are worried about this holy man. Most likely he is not as simple as he seems. The princess says that her husband is called a hero, to which the mermaid girls are surprised by her words. To which Ronpai says that Rafa does not pay attention to anything other than his research. She then explains that summoned heroes are those who were summoned from another world to fight demons and save people. Rafa is very surprised by Ronpai's words, saying that others in their world can also have their own affairs, to which he says that the baseness of the human race is no longer news. The princess says that she heard that the king of the humans forcibly summoned her husband to their world and expelled him because he was not fit for battle. Thus, her husband began to live using the knowledge and capabilities of his old world. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by some voice. It was the Dragon Veil. She was brutally hungry, so she decided you and Mr. are all angry at these girls. After some time, the pizza was ready. There were 4 different pizzas on 4 trays. The mermaid girls were surprised by the dishes from another world. The Holy Lord says that he will now divide the pizza into pieces. After cutting the pizza into pieces, he presents everyone with plates of pizza slices. First of all, he gives a plate to the Dragon Veil. She is incredibly happy. Ranpai says that the princess's husband, Lord St. Kaidan, is quite a resourceful person. The entire company of the Lord and princess's close friends are sitting at the dining table, which is fully covered with food. They all wish each other bon appetit. The mermaid girls took the pizza pieces and began to taste them one by one. They got a taste shock because they had never tried such food before. Ronpai says that this food is too delicious. They can't believe that this food is really from another world and it is so delicious. Rufa says that the abundance of taste made her soul fly to heaven. The Lord Saint is extremely pleased that the girls liked the food. Ronpai just watches silently. Then the Lord Saint gives the teacher and brother-in-law their favorite dishes. They both admire such a large amount of food. Suddenly, the princess remembers her older brother. She tells him that she will soon prepare a lot of pickled radishes, so she asks him not to be shy and buy some. The brother-in-law says that this is good news and he will drop by again next week. Rafa is shocked that Prince Arowana will come next week. She does not believe that this man, who is rarely seen even by a merfolk, will come in a week. Rufa is very pleased with what is happening. She turns to Rafa, to which she says that she did not say anything. Norio asks his wife if they have more, to which the girl replies that they do. The princess is very delighted that her husband's dish today is once again beyond all praise. The saint asks his beloved about the tomatoes, because she loves them very much. Then they laugh together, enjoying each other. Ronpai mentally addresses the princess and does not understand what the princess admires so much about this man, but she looks very happy. After some time, night falls and the mermaid girls go to their room. They are lying in a nice, cozy, and very comfortable bed. Rafa says that the food was really tasty. Rufa says it's all thanks to the tiny creatures. Ronpai says this man named Kaidan turned out to be quite a hard worker. The girls begin to discuss the past day because Batemi made them a bed. The bed was smooth and pleasant to the touch. The material is called silk, a very expensive fabric made from rare threads. This house and this futon are very cozy. The girls continue to think about what could be, and most likely, this is not a hellish place, but rather a paradise on earth. Outside the walls of the building there was a deep, moonless night. After some time, Rafa has finished her work. Suddenly, Rufa comes in and interrupts her. She asks her to help with her work when she finishes hers. She holds out an arched thing. She asks to soak this dried radish in wheat miso. Rafa asks her again. Rufa laughs a little and says that this wheat miso contains mold organisms. Rafa finds this disgusting. However, this is how pickled radishes are prepared. Rafa thinks that the prince will taste food prepared by her hands. Rufa likes Rafa's thoughts, to which she says that she never said anything like that. Rafa asks about Rampai's disappearance, to which Rufa says that she went hunting with the orcs. After all, she likes physical exercise. After some time, Rampai walks along a path with two orcs. Ranpai noticed something out of the corner of her eye. Suddenly, a wild boar jumps out at the command. Ranpai resolutely prepares to strike. The wild boar gets closer and closer to Ranpai, after which she cuts it into two parts with a quick and sharp blow. The orcs rejoice and are happy. Rampai says that for her, the royal knight, this is a mere trifle. After some time, night falls. In his room, the Lord Saint discusses these three mermaids. The princess says that they really help her out. She says that not only did they help her husband, but they also worked well with the juices and goblins, which allowed them to finish the radish field faster. The husband says that now they have seedlings that only need to be planted, and after they sprout, they will be able to make rice from his world. The Holy Lord says that cooking rice has a special meaning for him. The princess turns to her husband, to which she does not receive a clear answer. She becomes lost in her thoughts and begins to rejoice. She says that they simply have to cook this rice as quickly as possible, to which her husband confirms her words. After some time, the field for planting rice was ready. There were rice sprouts in special boxes. The mermaid girls do not understand what to do with this. They heard that today they will plant some sprouts. Rafa asks about planting rice, namely that they need to be planted directly in the water. The princess fully confirms her words. Rafa asks for mercy because she will stain the clothes that Batimi made for her. Batimi thanks her and says that these clothes are intended for fieldwork. Rufa says that, having exiled the saint, this rice is one of the fermentation components needed to make sake. She is sure that this drink will be very tasty. She thinks that Prince Arowana will also be very pleased. Rafa says that this is what they are here for, and she is looking forward to this rice. Rufa is very happy because she will be able to work together with the product of defeat. Rampai turns to the princess and says that she cannot allow the princess to get dirty, so she asks to give all the work to her, because for her sake, Rampai will go through water and fire. Vale will also have to work, although she does not want to. The princess turns to her husband and asks him to show them how to plant rice correctly. He tells them to take 3 or 4 seedlings and hold them between their thumb and forefinger. Then he tells them to plant these seedlings in water in this way. Everyone else agrees with his actions. The princess announces a rice planting tournament for all the villagers. They all step into the water one by one. Rufa is a little worried because the cold water gives her goosebumps. Ranpai is surprised because Rafa is doing her job very carefully. The maid girls help the rest of the team by bringing them new seedlings. All the villagers gradually plant the seedlings in the water. The mermaid girls and the dragon Veil also take part in planting the rice. Ranpai, she is excited about something. The mermaid girls express their dissatisfaction because this work is somehow more difficult than they could imagine. Rufa's legs can't take it, and Ranpai's lower back hurts. The servant girls are also outraged that this work is harder than working in the fields. One of them can no longer stand it and falls face down into the water. Finally, she would like to make a couple more dresses. A saint runs up to Batemi to help and asks about her health. Veil looks at what is happening and says that they are weaklings after all. The princess asks her if she is tired, to which Veil says that she is a dragon, and even in human form her strength remains the same. Veil notices that the princess is not tired either, to which she says that unlike others she has strong legs, and besides, she is already used to this work. Veil suggests to the princess that they hold a competition to see who can do it faster, to which the princess smiles and says that she is not going to lose to a girl who only sleeps and eats. Both girls are determined and ready to win. The rice planting competition begins. The girl immediately takes off and starts planting rice quickly. Lord St. Kaidan doesn't understand what's going on. The mermaid girls are simply surprised by what they see. These two have dealt with one strip in a jiffy. They have perfect rice placement. And they are surprised by the strong work and say that this is the highest skill. At the moment, the princess is the first in the landing. Not far from her is the dragon. The princess suddenly ran out of seedlings, and she asks someone to bring her more. Ranpai immediately takes the seedlings in his hands and hurries to present her with the seedlings in due time. And suddenly, unexpectedly, Veil pushes Ranpai, causing her to lose her balance. The other mermaid girls are surprised by what is happening. Ranpai is quite far from the princess. The princess is shocked that their field is in a slightly battered state. Ranpai says that she is fine. However, she is surprised that even in human form, Veil has dragon strength. Ranpai says that she underestimated the field work. She turns to Princess Plotty saying that the strength of her human legs is simply incredible. Ranpai says that hard work is the foundation of training. The princess says that may be true, but she's not doing all this for the sake of training. Veil appears and says that it is all for the sake of eating delicious food. Veil and the princess dream of the taste of rice. Ranpai understands that this is all for the sake of food. The princess motivates everyone by not saying that today they must completely cultivate the entire field. Thus, thanks to the fact that everyone worked, they managed to finish everything in one day, and thanks to the magic of the princess's products, the seedlings grew in 1 month. And finally, after some time, the rice was ready. The whole company of close and dear friends of the Lord Saint looked in surprise at the ready steamed rice. The saint says that rice can be eaten at any time of the day or night. Veil is eager to taste the rice and begs her master to let her taste it quickly. The princess appears and says that the arrest should be tasted by the husband first. The maids say that the princess tried with all her heart to make the rice grow faster. The saint asks the girls again, and they confirm his words. They say that the princess not only fertilized the rice for rapid growth, but also sat behind the rice field itself and asked them to help with the necessary preparations so that there would be a good harvest. Belena laughs a little. The princess asks Belena to stop her story. Kaidan is a little embarrassed and surprised by his wife's actions. The princess asks her husband to finally taste the rice. Kaidan agrees with his wife's words and subsequently puts rice into a full cup. Taking the cup in his hands, he gradually takes a small portion of rice to taste. The girls behind Kaidan's back look at him with anticipation. The Lord Saint takes a small piece of rice and gradually brings it to his mouth. The princess is eager to hear her husband's opinion. The saint says it is incredibly delicious. He even cries a little with pleasure. The princess looks at her husband a little shocked. Veil appears and asks the saint, "What is this?" It is so delicious that tears flow and asks him to quickly let her try it. Saint asks Veil to wait while he prepares the side dish, and then she will enjoy the full spectrum of flavor. Ranpai says that the princess tried hard to see this man smile. She is also glad that she tried her best. Rafa also understands her friend perfectly. To which Rafa says that she didn't say anything like that. The princess asks her husband why this rice has a special meaning to him, perhaps because it is the national food of his world. The husband confirms her words, but there is one but. He also wanted to thank everyone who helped him. He turns to his wife and thanks her for helping him. Norio turns to Hephaestus and asks about her health, because it is thanks to her that he lives here and enjoys life. He apologizes for being late and hands her the onigiri with gratitude. He asks her not to be shy and to taste the fruits of their joint labors. The princess turns to her husband and says that such food can be very dangerous. Initially, due to the lack of taste, she did not understand what was so good about this food, but the rice becomes incredibly tasty together with other dishes. The girls confirm the princess's words, saying that they too feel that they no longer want to return to a place where there is no such food. Vale asks her master to give her more food. The saint thinks that the girls really liked the rice. Rafa says that rice is a very scary thing. Vanity says that now that they have rice, he wants to cook other dishes. Plotty and Vale are shocked by these words. They are shocked and do not understand that they will have more dishes. They did not know that rice can be improved with other dishes. Suddenly, Vale jumps up and says that she will return to her dungeon and raise the difficulty. Saint is a little shocked by her statement. Princess says that it is a good idea. Kaidan doesn't understand what this has to do with rice. The princess says that raising the level of the dungeon passage means that various monsters may appear that weren't there before. Vale fully confirms the princess's words. She says that this can help improve the taste of not only rice but other dishes as well. Kaidan did not know that such a thing could be done in the dungeon. Rafa says that in this world only special creatures with the highest rank are capable of changing the dungeon, such as dragons. The dungeon has its own standards. Because of the mana that it is overflowing, the space in it is distorted. The princess says that only one of the two world disasters can change the dungeon. Vale confirms her words. Kaidan is wary of her words. Rafa didn't think such miracles would gather together. She thinks that this place is just incredible. Rufa remembers that Rafa was researching the flow of mana and its effect on others. Ranpai motivates Rafa not to give up. The princess suggests focusing on preparing ingredients for the meal. Ranpai wants to test her strength in Lady Vale's updated dungeon. The dragon says that a weakling like her can't challenge the dungeon. Vale became very curious, and on this occasion she will make several levels and see how Ranpai copes with it. In the princess, it seems that this will bring some trouble. A few days later, the dragon Vale is ready to present her updated dungeon. She asks the team to attack as a group. Saint is annoyed by Vale's voice from the top of the mountain. The princess says that they are just going to study new creatures, but she has a feeling that the final bosses are waiting for them. The team gathered to explore the Vale dungeon. Ranpai thinks that the saint went with them. He was called from another world by the king of people and thrown out because of powerlessness. She doubts whether the saint can cope with this difficult dungeon stuffed with many levels. In any case, she will protect the princess with all her strength. Suddenly, the team notices some movement ahead. They are attacked by a herd of wild boars. Ranpai asks to be given them to her. Suddenly, the girl becomes stupefied. The immortal king appears in front, and he waves his hand. A second later, the entire herd is destroyed. The immortal king says that he found the adventure interesting, so he decided to go with them. At that moment, Vale addresses him. She asks him not to change her dungeon at his own will. She gives a ban on this. Subsequently, the dragon's claws grab the immortal king by the collar. Vale says that the immortal king is disqualified for cheating. The team thanks the immortal king because thanks to him they were saved. They would have had a hard time if they had to fight so many monsters. Ranpai says that being friends with two world disasters greatly undermines her pride as a royal knight, after which the team breathes a sigh of relief. After which she denies her own words and says that she exists to protect the princess. The husband and wife think about changing the dungeon, but so far they have only met familiar monsters. Vale tells them not to worry and says that they are now in the old zone. She says that it will be problematic if the old monsters disappear. The new zone will be waiting for them further. After some time, they reached some clearing. The princess asks her dear husband to be careful. They understand that there is someone near them. Ranpai says that he senses strong monsters nearby. Suddenly, something appears behind Ranpai. They don't understand what's happening. Something attacks them, jumping out of the tall grass. It was spinning pucks. Kaidan thinks that these pucks look like UFOs. These flying UFOs are heading towards them. Because of their speed of rotation, they are sharp as a blade and then they cut off the tops of the trees. The team managed to dodge. Kaidan says that it is a UFO and then deciphers that it is an unidentified flying object. Rampai says that she can handle this herself. The princess says that she shouldn't be underestimated because she has the power of a crowned witch. Rampai says that he will do everything he can to help her. Kaidan was a little scared, but still wanted to help them. He took the sword in his hands and stood in a fighting stance. Rampai, noticing this, said that the sword should be held on the other side. Rampai takes the bag in her hands and says that first they need to stop their breakthrough. She pulls the clasp with her teeth and then throws the bag into the air. This bag gradually begins to glow near flying objects, after which an explosion of incredible power occurs. The princess remembers that the Rampai use potions that can explode. The saint understood why she is called the Witch of Hellfire. The girl is proud that she was able to defeat them, but then suddenly falls silent. She sees and understands that there was no damage to these flying objects. Vale boasts of their strength. Vale says that these are turtle-shaped monsters. The hardness of their shell is the strongest among monsters. Rampai comes closer and says that these turtles can be simply turned over and thus incapacitated. Suddenly, something flies out of the turtle's head and envelops the girl's hand. These were some kind of ropes that gradually begin to envelop the entire girl. The princess does not understand who these turtles with tentacles are. Gobukichi tries to free the girl, but he does not succeed. The orc makes a swing and wants to hit the turtle's body itself. He strikes the turtle's shell, but the shell itself is so hard that his axe simply breaks. Ranpei is also surprised by this action. The turtles, one after another, release many tentacles from their heads, which gradually move towards the team. The princess asks her husband to sort this all out, to which he immediately agrees. The turtle's tentacles gradually tied the girl around the neck. The saint makes a swing and then delivers a crushing blow to these tentacles. The tentacles fly apart in different directions. The saint himself is shocked by his actions. After which, the Holy Lord inquires about Rampai's health, to which she says that she is fine. And some smoke comes out of the turtle's head. The princess takes one of the turtles in her hand and notices that the sharp tentacles were their weak point. Vale are confused as the team defeated these turtles. However, these monsters that she created are some of the weakest. Further, the team will face even stronger opponents. Anna asks the team to proceed to the next level. The orc says that these skulls can be used as armor and shields for other goblins and orcs. Saint confirms his words. Vale asks the team not to keep her waiting. The princess appears and says that they just came to study new monsters. Rampai says that more and more powerful monsters will await them further. The princess says that everything is fine. She says that her husband is stronger than both the world's calamities. She says that he is the strongest in this world. Rampai is bewildered. She doubts the princess's words. She can't believe that the princess's husband is the strongest husband in the world. She doesn't want to lose heart and will find a new goal that suits her. The team decides to take a little break. The team made a break at one place in the forest. Rampai is surprised and says that she never expected that the Holy Lord would surpass the immortal king and the dragon in strength. There is still one thing she cannot understand, which is why the human kingdom banished the Holy Lord, despite him possessing incredible power. The Holy Lord says that he really doesn't have any fighting skills. It's just that at a certain point, a god gave him a gift so that he can fully unleash the capabilities of everything he touches. Besides, this lord has a sacred bull. Rampai is very surprised by the saint's words. Kaidan says that, therefore, he is not so special. Rampai says that the power of the saint is very useful. Princess Plotty married such a beautiful man. Even if demons or people decide to attack the princess, the entire mermaid kingdom will be safe. The sun was shining brightly in the sky, causing glare in the eyes. The princess says that the landscape around has not changed much, but on the contrary, it has become even hotter. Suddenly, the dragon's voice interrupts all the princess's thoughts. Vale says that the next scene is called a scorching hell, and the monsters for which these conditions are most suitable will attack them. Some creatures appeared in front of the team. It was a pack of wolves with manes like fire. The team immediately became wary and everyone took up fighting stances. Vale says that this is the most dangerous of all the four-legged monsters here, namely the Hyenalicans. These are strong, agile, ferocious monsters, and, in addition, they only get stronger when they are hot. Vale says that theirs is a win in endurance, so they can't escape. She turns to Lord Saint and asks how he can fight back against these wolves. At that moment, the wolves attack Lord Saint. The princess and Ronpai are also interested in this question. Suddenly, their facial expressions change, and they are in great bewilderment. All the wolves rolled on the ground like obedient dogs. They don't understand what's going on here. But suddenly, the Immortal King's voice says that the Hyaenolacans have sensed the power of the Holy Lord. These wolves looked at the Holy Lord sweetly. They didn't even try to attack him. Lord Saint begins to pet these regiments as if they were his pets. He is a little indignant, but at the same time happy. After some time, the team still passes through the scorching hell. All this time, the wolves calmly followed the team. They did not even try to stop. The voice of the Immortal King says that wolf-like monsters create a strict hierarchy to form a pack, and so the wolves recognize the Lord Saint as their leader. The wolves just look at the Lord Saint sweetly. Lord Saint is confused and looks at them happily. Saint says he never thought they would like him so much without using his own gift. Renpai notices and realizes that this is a high-level dungeon. The princess says that this could all be problematic. Vale asks her to praise him and says that even more terrible monsters await them ahead. Taking the wolves with him, the team continued to explore the Vale dungeon, and then they get to a place completely covered in snow. The princess does not understand why it is so cold here. Vale says that this is the last point of her dungeon, called Freezing Hell. The princess wants to go home. Suddenly, the Lord Saint turns around. The whole team also turns around and sees a monster standing behind them. It was a bear of enormous size. He stood on all fours and looked at the team with ferocity. The presence of the bear frightens the Holy Lord. The girls say that this is exactly the same enormous power that they felt when they first entered here. This monster is a head taller than those they met earlier. The princess asks her husband to leave this place. The crumpled one says that this monster is strong and he would like to avoid senseless destruction. The Lord understands that even he cannot escape from him, after which he turns to his teacher. The voice of the Immortal King says that this bear also understands the full power of the Holy Lord. He is a warrior who only knows how to fight. The voice of the Immortal King says that it is the fate of the bear to challenge the one who is strong. Then the bear roars and begins his attack. The bear runs furiously on the Lord Saint, and suddenly from behind the Lord's back appear wolves, who, in response, attack the bear. They envelop the bear from different sides. These wolves are sure that this is how they show devotion to their master. The saint says that he can't help them in any way like that. Then he asks Rampai to deal with it. She runs, drawing her rapier. She won't let the bear attack the team. With sharp and quick movements, she cuts the bear's legs. The bear growls furiously from the pain. Unable to stand on his feet, this bear falls to the ground. Rampai says that the tendon in his paw has been damaged, so he won't be able to move. The saint thanks Mrs. Rampai. The team wants to go home. Their friend is interrupted by Vale's voice. She asks them to stand still and says that she will not allow everything to end like this. The bear lies unconscious. Holy cries to the girls and the rest of the team to stop. He turns to his wife and asks her about the ointment he asked her to take. Plotty and Ranpai are a little shocked. The saint is going to use this ointment on this bear. Rampai says that if they leave the bear alone, he will simply disappear. But if his enemies test his mercy, it will make him very angry. The voice of the Immortal King wants to turn the bear into mana. The Vale asks the Immortal King not to do as he pleases. The saint turns to the teacher. Kaidan doubts his thoughts. He wants to save this bear because he is sure that it did not come here to attack them. Most likely, the bear had some purpose. The princess has no other choice but to give the ointment to the Holy Lord. Kaidan asks for forgiveness from Rampai because she put so much effort into protecting them. Rampai says that Lord Saint is too soft. She cannot believe that this man can protect the country and the princess. Lord Saint prepares for his actions. Kaidan asks Mr. Bear to take care of himself a little more, because that way he will be able to live longer. The bear does not react to the words of the Holy Lord. All these actions angered the Dragon Vale. She does not understand why the team went against her rules. She says that she has nothing left, except to use the last resort. After which, Velsama appears on the battlefield and says that their opponents will be herself. Rampai is shocked that the final boss will be a dragon. Vale is madly pleased with the team's reaction. She asks the team not to worry because it's just a clown with 1/100 of her strength, but even that will be enough to destroy a couple of cities. She asks the team to attack. Suddenly, Lord Saint notices something out of the corner of his eye. It was a bear who suddenly struck the dragon on the head. The girls stand in a stupor. From such a blow, the dragon begins to gradually disappear and eventually evaporates completely. Kaidan is shocked that the bear destroyed the Veil clone. Kaidan and the bear exchange glances. Sciato does not understand why the bear did this. After these words, the bear turns sharply and gradually disappears over the horizon, finally disappearing from sight. The orc and goblins say that as monsters, I do not understand the feelings of this bear. They say that the bear is a proud creature. This fight is now his way of repaying the kindness of their master. Okubo says that the bear has gone on his own path in order to become a powerful monster that their master will acknowledge. The saint says that in that case, he and the bear will meet again. Has done so far is fight to protect whoever she wants. Her actions did not make the world a better place. Being willing to lend a hand to a friend or an adversary, that kindness is probably the real strength. Sometime later, in the village of the Holy Lord Kaidan, the dragon Veil stood with a satisfied frown. Rufa says that her new dungeon did not impress anyone. As the dragon is addressed by the Holy Lord, he presents her with new food and says that it is food from their new menu called Katsudon. The saint says that when they were descending from the mountain, they finally found a bird monster that laid eggs, after which the saint was finally able to cook the dish he had wanted for so long. This is all thanks to the reconstructed dungeon of Veil. Saint says that now he can improve his cooking skills. Then he thanks Veil. Veil just melts with happiness, and her face and eyes start to shine with joy. She is a little embarrassed. Sviato asks the whole company to come to the table, because the food is already served. After some time, a rather strange exclamation is uttered. The whole company is surprised by the new and unique taste. The saint says that in this way, during the exploration of the dungeon, the team was able to obtain his long-awaited eggs. Going outside, the saint says that their settlements are becoming more and more lively. The saintly lore is interested in the future. He does not know what will happen to their settlement in the future. Then, in another place, namely in the forest, some events occur. Two unknown people in hoods are discussing something. They have no idea what is going on here. They cannot believe that there is a village in this place. This whole team of people were sitting on the branches of trees. One of the people says that she must see everything with her own eyes, namely as the head of this gang of thieves, Aileron. One wolf was named Pochi, the second Pochi, the third Khan, and the fourth Taro. Oh, Holy Lord throws some kind of bandage and tells his wolves to fetch. The Holy Lord says that these were the wolf monsters he encountered in the Veil dungeon, and that they came to live with him. He pets one of the wolves and is touched by its beauty. Lord Saint says that Pochi and the others are exterminating pests and driving away stray monsters from the dungeon. But there is one small problem. The wolves are fighting again over a mouse they caught. Sviatoe thinks that there is not enough food for the wolves. Suddenly, an idea dawns on him. After some time, he is preparing meat. Veil comes up to him and asks what he is doing. The saint says he wants to cook dog food. This food will serve for his wolves. Veil is unhappy that the wolves eat their food too. Veil says there is nothing funny about it and breathes out some flame from her mouth. She says she will deal with those wolves herself. Saint says there is no need for that, and those wolves already belong to their family. Veil is still dissatisfied. Saint draws his sword. It's time to grind the ingredients. The saint admires his amazing ball because it can cut food to a microscopic level. Veil is a little upset that the saint is being treated improperly with her unholy greatsword. She can't forgive Lord Saint. Because of her displeasure, she's going to eat that dog thing. There was dog food prepared in a small barrel. Lord Saint says that he took care of his dog's health and removed excess fat. Nutritional balance is very important, so he also added some vegetables. Lord Saint had one more question. Would the dogs like the food? His fears were proven wrong. The dogs really liked his food. Suddenly, he was distracted by a voice. It was Veil who had transformed into a dragon and asked to give her some of this food too. Svartsvetu couldn't do anything about it and asked Veil to return to her original form and stretch out her hands. He pours her some dog food. Veil looks at her palms full of dog food with happy eyes. She immediately pounces on the treat. She chews the dog food carefully. She says that the food may be nutritious, but it tastes more like animal food. Suddenly, her expression changes, and she starts to smile slyly. She turns to one of the dogs. Even the dogs were scared by her look. Well tells the dogs to eat as much as they want. Since then, Veil has not eaten dog food anymore. The food was tasteless. Some voices are interested in this settlement. They do not understand what kind of fruits and berries, as well as vegetables, grow on these bushes. Some of the voices note that this did not happen even in the estates of rich people and demons. They notice that someone is tending these fields. One of the gang takes one of the fruits and tastes it. This guy asks his boss to taste this fruit, and he feels like his cheeks are numb. These fruits have an incredible taste. The boss is going to try them too. Suddenly, something dawns on her. She doesn't understand what aroma is hidden behind this wonderful fruit. It's too tasty for her. One of the boss's servants says that the territory is being followed. She noticed several more houses with mysterious architecture and gardens. This village looks more like a farm. This is especially confirmed by the mysterious harvest. The group assumes that aristocrats live in this place, and if this is true, then it is not surprising for them that these fields are located in the middle of nowhere. The guy from the group doesn't know what to do with all this, to which the boss replies that most likely there should be treasure hidden in this territory. If they miss this golden opportunity, it will ruin their reputation as successful thieves. The boss introduces himself as Thunder Freezers, and they will clean out this mansion and also take all the valuables. Suddenly, the boss notices something. One of the Lord Saint's dogs is looking at them from the bushes. Meanwhile, in the building itself, the servant girl is creating magic circles in the sky. She was actually checking the waypoints. There's nothing normal about them. Belena says her job is to maintain the waypoints for His Majesty the Demon King and the Demon Queen, Miss Astress. She says that this job is completely worthless because she only managed to sing one song. Because of this, she helped everyone and everything. She previously worked under the Demon King before moving here. Now, part of the work is taken by 3 mermaids who work in those areas where there is a shortage of labor. Because of this, her workload has been greatly reduced. Recently, the servants have had too much free time. Clenching her hand into a fist, she says that this is very, very bad. She falls into thought and says that if this continues, she will lose everything and be left without a job. She decides to do something about it. She asks Lord Saint to give her a job. She searches for Lord Saint all over the mansion and eventually finds him. Lord Saint was making pottery at the time. The servant interrupts him and does not understand what the Holy Lord is doing. He says that he is making a pot, namely, make a bowl out of clay. He says that since the dishes they have are made of mana metal, he thought it was high time to get some real pottery. The servants finally realized that they had been dining on dishes made of precious metals. The saint says that hand molding takes a lot of time and therefore thinks that the pot needs some reconstruction, so he rotates it. Suddenly, something dawns on the servant. Belena is eager to help the Light Lord, to which he greatly appreciates her zeal, but adds and says that this is very labor-intensive work. The servant says that the Holy Lord can still use her. Belena says that, in fact, she also has psychokinesis. Afterwards, if she gives magic to a pebble, it will start to move. At least, that's the only magic she can do on a single pebble. She places the pebble on a rotating machine and then sets it in place with clay. She says a prayer. With his arms outstretched, the forward rotating machine begins to spin. The Holy Lord is pleased with the work of the henbane. The machine begins to spin. Then more and more, after which the clay that stood on this machine flies into the face of the Holy Lord. Laura of the Color asks Henbane to slow down a bit, to which she apologizes. Lord Saint remarks that Henbane is working hard, to which she says that she is not. She says that she works really hard, but as a result, she is not as good as his girlfriend or others. She says that she constantly needs help because she does not want to be left without a job. Lord Flower says that there is nothing to worry about, and thanks her for helping with the pot. Henbane says that now the pot has turned into a pancake, and she could not do anything else. Lord Saint asks Henbane to solve everything together. She is happy with his words. After some time, they get a dented cup. Belena wants to break this cup, but Lord Saint stops her. Anna says that the first pancake is always lumpy and asks her not to be upset. He is sure that something can still be done about it, to which Henbane says that he should not support her so ardently. A friend distracts them with some voice. The wolves barked like crazy, so they ran towards their cries. It was a group of thieves who were caught and tied up. Lars asks Okubo to explain. He says that they caught a group of Elven Bandits on their farm. Elves were like demons. Throughout history, they evolved separately. Lord Saint thought they were allies of his servants. However, she says that elves do not interact with humans or demons. The servants heard that there were numerous groups of Elysian bandits who were stealing left and right indiscriminately, thereby gaining a bad reputation among people and demons. Most likely they have a shelter where no one can penetrate. That is why they are so difficult to catch. The saint appears and says that most likely they live in the mountains. These places are quite isolated from the world. He turns to a group of thieves and says that they must have been surprised when they found their farm. The boss turns to the Lord Saint and asks who they are, to which the saint says that his name is Saint Kadan, and this is the place where Saint Kadan settled. Some of yours are whispering and noting that this Kaidan is a human. They do not understand why he is accompanied by a demon, and they also do not understand that all the other inhabitants of this village are monsters. Lord Holy, you understand that these thieves are still confused. He turns to the orc and asks what they did. The orc says that they stole tomatoes from their farm. Another girl's voice interrupts the orc's story. The princess and the dragon come to the noise. They are furious that they ate their tomatoes. Vale immediately turns into a dragon and says that they deserve to be destroyed. Sveta understands that Vale can no longer be stopped. The princess says that this is their problem. If they do not allow them to leave unpunished, then there is no guarantee that this will happen again. Vale addresses the thieves and says that they must execute them so that everyone knows what will happen if they invade their property. The group of thieves are in shock and great fear. They start crying and asking for forgiveness, saying that they will end their career right now. Belena's friend remembered something. She says that she saw this group in the archives. This group is aimed only at rich celebrities and traders. The aristocrats they hunted were usually corrupt, lining their pockets with taxes and bribes. The nobles whose deeds were exposed and their actions were disgraced by the demon king Zedon. Vale says that whoever invaded their lands deserves no execution. She asks the thieves to prepare themselves. The Lord of Color thinks for a moment. Then he confirms the princess's words. Lord Saint is about to pass sentence on a theft case. Then he turns to the Elven Bandits who stole and ate tomatoes from their farm, and he says that this is a serious crime. Therefore, they will all work for them. Belena listened attentively to the story of Lord Saint Kaiden, but after that her expression changed. She was perplexed.